Chapter 17 Lan Yu Knew. Chapter 17 Lan Yu Knew. In the span of an entire day, Lin Ming had visited 2 auction houses, a trade fair, and also 5 treasure trading pavilions that were set up by respectable families, and yet he hadn't found a buyer. As he returned to the Great Clarity Pavilion, Lin Ming sighed. He hadn't expected that selling a few inscriptions would be so difficult. However, this was just a little setback. The dismissive taunts and jeers had no effect on Lin Ming, whose pain and suffering from cultivating martial arts had exceeded any psychological pain he would experience by several times. Even if it was Zhu Yang taunting him about Lan Yu Knew, his poor family background, his lower cultivation, none of these could affect Lin Ming's heart of martial arts. He placed away the symbol papers and began to practice the true primal chaos formula. Although he had practiced the inscription techniques every day this month, he still managed to eke out some time to practice the true primal chaos formula. Now, with his hard work, the true primal chaos formula had already finished the entirety of the first level. His own martial arts cultivation was also at the peak of the first level of body transformation. With the strength of 9 stones and a fist that can shatter iron wood, this was proof he was at the peak of body transformation's first level, strength training. 9 stones was equivalent to 900 jins. This was the peak of body transformation's first level. But the reality was Lin Ming's present strength was no less than 1,000 jins. This was due to the influence that the chaotic virtues combat meridians had on his training, and not only that but his strength was increasing daily. Yet, Lin Ming was actually still stuck in the first level of body transformation. After he circulated his soul force with the true primal chaos formula, Lin Ming began to focus on his understandings of bones. His own deboning time had already reached an extremely high degree of proficiency and speed. Even a second-level vicious beast was not enough to satisfy his practice requests. Unfortunately, even at the Great Clarity Pavilion, level 3 vicious beasts were very rare. Lin Ming wanted to practice on these rare beasts but was unable to. So he thought of an idea, and began to instead use the flat back of the knife to debone. Normally, someone who was deboning who would the sharpest knife they could, or even an axe or any other sharp instrument. Deboning would also often take the entirety of a day to finish a second-level vicious beast. But Lin Ming actually used the very thick back of a knife to debone. It was absurdly difficult and impossible. The knife felt as if it were cutting into solid rock, and every inch required an extreme degree of effort and strength. This was forcing Lin Ming to constantly be exhausting his physical ability to the limit while perceiving the skill. Before, it took more time to eat a bowl of rice than to debone a second-level vicious beast completely, but now 2 hours still wasn't enough time to finish. Even after he did, he was soaked in sweat. Thankfully, the results were still good and he neatly cut off the slabs of meat as he had before. If Great Clarity Pavilion knew that Lin Ming was finishing deboning these second-level vicious beasts with just the back of a knife, they would not only check Lin Ming into the nearest hospital, but would also check themselves in. After a night of practice, Lin Ming was weary to his bones. He had completely forgotten about the inscription matters and directly fell asleep. After a night of deep rest, Lin Ming awoke before daybreak and headed to his secret place at the Ju Mountains to practice his martial arts. With strike after strike, the sun began to rise into the sky. At this time, a young boy approached from the glade. He was a tall, healthy-looking boy dressed in white. "Brother Lin, why did you ask me yesterday where to sell inscription symbols? Did you really finish engraving some?" This boy was precisely Lin Xiaodong. Yesterday around this time, Lin Ming had asked him and he had answered without thinking. But after thinking about it more and more, he realized that there is no way that Lin Ming should have been able to create any inscriptions. Although Lin Xiaodong did not have a deep understanding of inscription, he still knew it was impossible for Lin Ming to create a complete inscription symbol. It was likely some shoddy or half-finished product, and if he brought something like that to the trade fair to sell, then the merchants would likely have had him beaten up for being some swindler. Lin Ming smiled and nodded. "I finished some." Lin Xiaodong's heart tightened. "You brought them to sell?" "Millimeter. But I didn't sell any." It was expected that he hadn't sold any. These merchants weren't fools. Lin Xiaodong sized up his friend with a bit of worry. His puppy dog eyes were filled with anxiety as he asked, "Brother Lin, you weren't beat up, were you?" Lin Ming was stunned silent. This little brother of his truly had a wild imagination. He burst out laughing and clapped his friend on the shoulder. I really did finish the inscription symbols, and I'm not some second-hand swindler. Why would I be beat up? As he said this, he took out the 4 symbol papers which he had labored over the past month and showed them to Lin Xiaodong. He didn't want him to worry over him. However, as soon as Lin Xiaodong saw these 4 symbol papers, his face immediately stiffened in horror. The appearances of these symbol papers were truly terrible to look at. He guessed that Lin Ming's inscriptions might be second-rate, or even defective, but this was just too much. The paper was thick yellow. It just had the appearance of toilet paper that was used too many times. Only a fool would buy it. Lin Xiaodong had seen several symbol papers by inscription masters before, and they were always on bright, clean sheets with shimmering colors. Lin Xiaodong looked as if he had eaten spoiled porridge. He let out a dry smile. Oh, brother of mine, sweet brother of mine. He did not have the nerve to embarrass Lin Ming, who was probably suffering. He could only think of the several hundred tales of material that had become overused toilet paper. Lin Xiaodong's heart was in immediate pain. This really was a waste of money. Lin Ming noticed Lin Xiaodong's expression had changed, and he could guess what he was thinking at the moment. He simply put the symbol papers away. There just wasn't any way he could adequately explain this to Lin Xiaodong in a way that he would understand. Brother Lin, I must say with your talent and effort, you will break through the pulse condensation period sooner or later. Why bother with this? Lin Xiaodong decided to try the carrot approach to persuade his good friend. The stick obviously had not worked. Lin Ming smiled and stayed silent. Lin Xiaodong wasn't wrong. Even if he didn't bother with inscription, it was only a matter of time until he reached the pulse condensation phase. Even the Hutian phase or even the fabled Xiantian phase wouldn't be too difficult. But cultivating the martial path was a daily struggle, and time waited for no man. If he didn't improve his cultivation as fast as he could while he was young, it would only become increasingly difficult with age. If he didn't use special medicines or magical objects and only relied on his own diligent efforts, even if he had a solid foundation, it would still take a massive amount of time. Time that Lin Ming could not afford to spend. Therefore he needed to make money using the inscription technique and take as many shortcuts as he could. He said, Xiaodong, you head back first, I still have some matters to attend to. Matters? Brother Lin, you aren't thinking of selling these symbol papers, are you? Lin Ming laughed and said with a smile, don't worry about it too much, I already know how things are. As he said this, Lin Ming had already passed several dozens of meters into the distance. F***CK. Lin Xiaodong saw Lin Ming had disappeared and could only curse at his back. He knew Lin Ming had decided on his course and he couldn't change it. Brother of mine, oh brother of mine, please be careful. Although Lin Ming's truly had the firm will and aspirations, some things were beyond even the control of the heavens. Although there were many shops in Sky Fortune City, the number that had the qualifications to sell inscription symbols weren't many. Including the auction houses and trade fairs, altogether there were less than 30. Within these, Lin Ming had already visited most of them, and without an exception had been rejected from all of them. It was just that he was only an apprentice. Occasionally an apprentice would luck out and create a complete product, but no one would want to waste their precious weapons on such a dubious product. Lin Ming was a tad disappointed by this setback, but it didn't affect him. In his mind he knew that he only needed some more time and he would see the fruits of his labor. You want to sell us this inscription on consignment? Are you kidding me, little boy? You're so young and yet you want to do something so dishonest. This simply cannot be sold. Go, and do not delay me in doing business. You're blocking the way. The storekeeper of 100 Treasure Hall impatiently waved him away. The manners of private shop owners were always worse than the more professional auction houses. Lin Ming didn't take this to heart, but as he turned around he saw a familiar face. It was an extremely beautiful face, but one he was also reluctant to see. Not too far from him were 2 girls wearing light yellow dresses. One of them was the one who had missed their promised meeting a few months ago, and had accompanied Zhu Yang to go to the 7 Profound Martial House, Lan Yunyu. Lan Yunyu had also just arrived, and she looked down at the 4 sloppy symbol papers in Lin Ming's hand, and thought about the words that the storekeeper and just said. Her dewy complexion changed. Lan Yunyu had not seen inscription symbol papers before, but even if she had, she would not connect those fabled objects to these rough papers in Lin Ming's hand. She guessed Lin Ming was reselling goods. Some goods didn't cost much, and they would try to buy up such things and sell them at the more common, lower-end markets for the price difference. This kind of work had low profits, and above all, it wasn't work one could hold their head high to. Also, Lin Ming's family was not rich, and he had to support the expenses of cultivating martial arts along with daily expenses for living. He must have been short on money recently, and therefore tried whatever he could. With that thought there, Lan Yunyu sighed. She did not know if she should say anything in this situation. She felt as if anything she said might possibly injure Lin Ming's dignity, but she also couldn't pretend that she had not seen him. By now the storekeeper had seen Lan Yunyu, and his ugly mug immediately smiled in welcome. From the past to now, it was as if he were a completely different person. "This young lady, what goods were you looking to purchase? Yesterday you bought a sword. Was it easy to use?" "Oh yes, and how about that young master that accompanied you yesterday? Did you come together?" "I don't see him." It was obvious the storekeeper's mention of young master was referring to Zhu Yang. Seeing that smile on the storekeeper's face, Lin Ming also knew that the last time Zhu Yang had come here with Lan Yunyu, the storekeeper had made a fortune. Lan Yunyu didn't think that the storekeeper would mention Zhu Yang at this time, which only made the situation more awkward and tense. She wanted to explain that she hadn't done anything with Zhu Yang, but she held the words on the tip of her tongue. Her face paled and she steeled herself. She was not a little girl anymore, and she had to be clear about these things. Sooner or later she would marry into the Zhu family, and although she did not like Zhu Yang, but for her goals, she had caved into her destiny and had chosen the path of betrayal. After a little more tense awkwardness, Lan Yunyu asked in a low voice, "It's been a while. Have you been well?" "All right." Lin Ming replied calmly. What was in the past was in the past. He did not wish to dwell on these matters. "All right. If you were truly all right, then how could you be there?" A 15-year-old boy suffering from the pain of cultivation, while also having to worry about his own livelihood, and experiencing the derision of others, was this really okay? Lan Yunyu knew Lin Ming's stubbornness, but seeing his appearance like this, she could only urge, "You had not thought to turn back." "Turn back? Turn back to where? Haha, are you telling me to give up on martial arts?" "I am not saying that. I am only saying that cultivating martial arts is dangerous to the body. If you don't have enough money to buy medicine, then it is easy to suffer permanent disability." Lan Yunyu sighed, and her gaze fell on the symbol papers in Lin Ming's hand. "Money you make from reselling some small goods is not enough to support the needs of martial arts cultivation. I do not think that you have suffered from anything yet. I know that you are unwilling to listen, but I do not want to think that later in life the only thing you'll be doing is lying down on a bed." Hearing her heartfelt words, Lin Ming smiled and said, "Thank you for the advice, but I won't give up. I will never give up." He lifted his hand and pointed at the beautiful burning flame image on the symbol paper and said, "The path of the martial artist is like this flame. Practicing the martial arts will only cause pain. The dangers are countless and the road is filled with obstacles. Everyone who walks down it will eventually turn to ash, but the true martial artist will be reborn from these ashes. Even if I was only a small and weak moth, I will walk into the flames without hesitation. I will fight my destiny for a 1 in a million chance that I will experience my own samsara and be reborn into a flaming phoenix. And even now, I am no longer a moth." Lin Ming spoke those words with a faint smile. He put away his symbol papers and quietly departed, leaving only the silhouette of his lonely, but proud back. Lin Ming left the 100 Treasures Hall like a moth to the light. This was his heart of martial arts. This was his Tao. He will persevere until the day he reaches nirvana. He will not rest until that day that he would soar into the skies. Chapter 18 Sold. Chapter 18 Sold. Lin Ming's last stop was the Red Maple Auction House. Lin Ming did not entertain any ideas of success, and as he thought, the auction house's beautiful auctioneer had come out herself to turn him down. However, this beautiful lady felt that Lin Ming had been treated a bit unfairly, so she gave him 2 suggestions. First, He should try the Inscription Association. Perhaps they would be interested in purchasing his symbol papers for collection or educative uses. Normally an apprentice-level inscription symbol was relatively rare because of the low success ratio, but Lin Ming had 4, so it was even more so. Secondly, he could try heading to the city square and peddling his goods there. Lin Ming had not gone to the Inscription Association before. He did not have the credentials of a genuine inscription master, and even a top-tier inscription master would be unable to see the mysteries behind Lin Ming's inscriptions. The difference between Sky Fortune Kingdom's inscription technique and those of the Realm of the Gods was simply too large. The only thing Lin Ming could do was to go to the city square center and hope to sell his symbol papers there. Unfortunately, it was impossible to get a decent price. Although the city square was a lower-tier trading center, it was still an official establishment propped up by the government. In here there were a variety of goods that could be sold on commission. The trading center would take in 5%, but the reputation of the center was well known, and there wasn't a fear of being cheated, so many people chose to do that. The quality threshold to enter the trading center was low. As long as it was genuine and not a knockoff, then any goods could be sold at reasonable prices. Lin Ming's inscription symbols were naturally the real deal, this no one could deny, but it was just an apprentice's work, so the value was low. After the trading center's appraiser examined his goods, the fat man offered him a starting price of 100 gold taels. Hearing this number, Lin Ming could only be stunned into silence. "Your sister. What is this?" The materials for the inscription cost 700 to 800 gold taels, and the trading center offered 100 gold taels for one. If he sold it at 100 gold taels, Lin Ming would only receive 400 gold taels. "So do you want to sell or not?" Lin Ming clenched his teeth. "Yes, I will sell. I'll sell too." Lin Ming had recently spent all his money. If it weren't for the large salary and good conditions of the Great Clarity Pavilion, he would have been starving on the streets. Even if it was selling at a loss, he could accept selling too. As for the other two, he would just wait a period. His heart wasn't willing to sell the last two at 100 taels of gold each. "Leave your address behind," the fat appraiser said. The trading center was responsible for the sale of commission items only. Only when people have bought the item would they be paid. For Lin Ming, these two inscription symbols also didn't have a certainty to sell. A low rental is 1 gold tael, a medium rental is 3 gold taels, and a high rental is 5 gold taels for a lease of 1 month. If after that time period the item is unable to sell, the item goes off the shelf and the money is not refunded. The fat appraiser said. F***ck. Even this required money, his luck was really dog-***t. He turned his head and thought about it. The high rent was obviously the best, followed by the medium rent. The low rental was probably some shady corner where no one would see his items. Lin Ming fished out 5 gold taels from his pockets, and slapped 3 gold taels on the able. "I'll take the medium rent." To think that matters would come to this. The inscription was without a doubt no worse than a master's, but now it sold for 100 taels of gold only, and he also had to pay 5% taxes along with a rental fee, and it also depended on whether someone bought his items. Lin Ming sighed. It really was difficult being unknown. He placed the 2 gold taels back into his pocket and forced a smile. Let alone buying any rare medicines to cultivate his martial arts, he would be lucky if there was enough food to put on the table. Without the medicines and without any other materials, Lin Ming did not feel right asking his good brother Lin Xiaodong to borrow money. Therefore he stayed in the Ju Mountains and practiced the true primal chaos formula. The days passed one by one like this. Already 7 days had gone. The city square trading center had always been a bustling place. Some people with good judgment would come here and window shop for some rare goods that were misplaced at a lesser price. It was a rewarding feeling to find a hidden treasure. However, these people would not normally look at medicinal herbs or inscription symbols. It was just too difficult to see their quality, so they often skipped these items. Because of this, hundreds and thousands of customers had come, but Lin Ming's inscription symbol calmly stayed on the shelf, as nobody asked for it. But today, a tall, brawny man with a large upper body came strolling into the trading center. His whole body was wrapped with thick muscles and he had a rugged appearance. He was simply an intimidating man. He carried a 4-foot-long sword on his back, and walked proudly like a tiger that was looking for trouble. The person had cold eyes. His body was crisscrossed with scars. He was a man who had experienced countless life or death experiences. This man was a true killer. Those little boys who trained at the Marshall House simply could not compare with his presence. Seeing this person, the fat appraiser shrank. This man was at the 5th level of body transformation, a powerhouse at the peak of bone forging. This person was only a step away from the pulse condensation period. But this one step had too many people who were unable to cross over in their entire lives. What does the customer wish to buy? The fat appraiser stood up and greeted. The man did not say a single word and just looked around, so tactfully the appraiser also remained silent. The man looked around the store and it didn't seem like anything caught his interest, until suddenly, he pointed at 2 yellow slips of paper that were pressed between panes of glass. This is the inscription symbol. Yes. It's 100 gold taels, the man said with a hint of surprise. The usual inscription symbol cost more than 1,000 gold taels. 100 gold taels really was cheap. The storekeeper said truthfully, this is the product of an inscription apprentice. His cultivation level is only at the 3rd level of body transformation. The increased strength it offers is probably only up to 10%. 10%, the man frowned. This really was a low number. But alas, he could not afford to purchase inscription symbols worth more than 1,000 gold taels. This hero's name was Tai Feng. His background was common, and his salary was dependent on what the army provided for him. He had to provide for his elderly parents along with supplying his own medicine, so he could not spend any large amount of gold. Not even 1,000 gold taels, but even 100 was a pretty hefty price. 1 month ago, Tai Feng had accompanied the armed forces on an expedition and had taken the head of the enemy leader, who was also at the bone forging stage. He took his sword as the spoils of war. This sword was a treasure of the human steppe. The army's rules were that treasures earned were one's own. Like this, Tai Feng obtained a treasured sword. However, the sword had been damaged, the sword's tip had broken off. This incomplete treasure could only display a limited effect. When the martial artist concentrated his sole force in the weapon, because the sword was incomplete, the combat strength was also lowered. Moreover, Tai Feng was also disappointed that the sword did not have an inscription symbol, so its strength is even lower by a level. Tai Feng did not think of engraving an inscription on it, as he was unable to afford the high price, and also because the sword was damaged so one could say it was unworthy of something like an inscription symbol. But seeing this inscription symbol from an apprentice, he began to see the appeal of it. Generally a symbol that increased the strength by 30% would take about 1,500 gold taels. But this only increased a weapon by 10%, so the price was only 100 gold taels. The ratio of effectiveness to cost was high, but more importantly, he could afford it. Tomorrow was the 3rd round of the Army's martial arts tournament. His next opponent was a pretty difficult one. If he could raise his sword strength by just a bit, then his chances of winning would be much higher. The tournament was required by all martial artists within 30 years of age. If one had a great result, they would obtain great rewards, or even a promotion in military rank. Tai Feng's military exploits had already accumulated throughout the years. If he showed great results this time, he might even be raised to captain of 10,000 men. Moreover, he wanted the rewards. 10 years ago his mother had picked herbal medicines so he could continue practicing his martial arts and had fallen off a cliff and broken both her legs. She had been confined to a bed since. Tai Feng swore to the heavens that he would buy the rare medicine black jade paste for his mother. Black jade paste had the ability to heal broken bones if set properly. With it, he would be able to cure both his mother's legs, and she would be able to walk again. But the price of this rare medicine was 5,000 gold taels. To him now, it was simply an unimaginable figure. With this in mind, Tai Feng must grasp victory with his own hand. Tomorrow was the 3rd day of the tournament, and even Marshal Qin Xiao would attend in person. He was the number 1 figure in the land. There was no way he could lose with so much on the line, for his family, for his mother. Tai Feng clenched his teeth and said to the storekeeper, "This inscription symbol, I'll take it." "No way. Somehow, you managed to get back 95 taels of gold. Lin Xiaodong looked at the banknote in Lin Ming's hand and couldn't believe it was real. He couldn't say what he thought in his mind, that some pitiful fool and spent 95 gold taels to purchase a piece of toilet paper. It's 92 gold taels. Lin Ming said. The City Square's trading center was very quick in terms of money. The next day after the purchase they had handed over Lin Ming his profit. It was originally 100 gold taels, and after taking out 5% and 3 gold taels for the rent, there was 92 gold taels left. An inscription symbol that should have had a minimum value of 1,000 taels of gold only sold for 92. It really dumbfounded Lin Ming that the person who bought it profited so, but it was true that those who bought them took the risks. 90 taels of gold was not enough to buy any sort of rare medicine. It was only enough to buy the common kind that cured wounds. Lin Ming shrugged and went to the medicine shop to look for some materials. What he didn't know was that at this time in the armor grounds, there was a tournament of unmatched pomp and grand that was occurring, the Grand Assembly of Martial Artists. At the 10-mile grounds, wearing heavy iron armor under the blazing sun, 10,000 soldiers stood in a tight square formation. If one simply approached them they would feel the aura of war, as if they were drowning in some ancient battlefield as the god of death was galloping towards them. These were the Sky Fortune's kingdom's most superb warriors. Even picking out one randomly, it wasn't a joke to say that they could fight against 10 other warriors. Opposite of these soldiers were rows of seats. At the center of this sat a man wearing golden armor. Although the thick hairs at his temple were already graying, his expression was bright, and his eyes were sharp like a falcon. He gave a feeling of infinite power, a hero among heroes. This was the man whose strength had swept away the Eastern Sun country 80 years ago, Marshal Qin Xiao. His presence here showed how important this tournament was. The Qin family also came in attendance, including Qin Xingxuan and her master, Mr. Mui. Mui was already 100 years old. His cultivation had reached the middle stage of Hutian. He was also one of Sky Fortune highest masters, and was an inscription master. Even the king of Sky Fortune Kingdom had to treat him with respect. Besides the Qin family, there were also thousands of other military officials. Chapter 19 Mui's Doubts. Chapter 19 Mui's Doubts. The Sky Fortune Kingdom held martial arts in high esteem, especially in the military. A tournament would be held every 3 years, for the selection of talents into higher positions, and to raise the fighting spirit of the martial warrior. The requirements for this tournament were that one had to be less than 30 years old and had achieved at least the 3rd level of body transformation. Thousands of competitors would enter in, and after several tests and 3 rounds, only 50 would remain. Now the 3rd and final round of the competition was beginning. The competitors had gone through their rounds, and soon there would be only 50 remaining. This was the last battle. The contestants would put forth all their hidden abilities and fight with all their might. The stage would fill with the aura of a raging fire as each man made their last stand. However, the start of the competition had not caused the higher-ups to pay much attention. The competitors on the field so far either had low strength, or too much of a disparity between them. It had reached the 20th round so far and there hadn't been any rousing fights. All Qin Xiao cared about so far were the results. The competition now had 2 sides. One was the son of a general, a handsome 29-year-old man at the peak of bone forging. The past few years this man has gone on numerous missions and earned many medals and awards for his service. His strength had been strengthened by these events, and in his possession were even 2 treasures, a saber and a suit of armor. The saber also had an engraving on it from an inscription master. Its strength was no small matter, but on the other side was a birth soldier of humble origins. His name was Tai Feng. His talent wasn't outstanding, but he practiced diligently to the point it left one breathless. He was fearless in battle, not even the threat of death could cause him to waver. He had killed many enemies and earned himself many merits, even more so than the general's child. Now, Tai Feng was also at the peak of bone forging. It was rare for 2 soldiers to have such a similar and high cultivation at their age. After slaughtering their enemies in the battlefield, in the future it was possible that they would enter the pulse condensation period and become pillars of the country. As the referee announced the 2 competitors, A silver-emblazoned general smiled with happiness and gratification. The one going on stage was his son. "Haha, old man Li, your son really did you proud this time." Qin Xiao smiled as he said this. This silver-emblazoned general had once been under his command and they were old friends. "Commander is too polite. This poor son of mine has grown up with many rare medicines and still hasn't shown much promise. He really isn't making an effort to succeed." Although the silver-emblazoned general said this with deprecation, he couldn't conceal his smile. He was very satisfied and proud of his son. "Millimeter, this Typhon has had very good results, but he will find it difficult to win today." Qin Xiao said so because of the difference in martial skills and the disparity in rare equipment. The silver-emblazoned general's son had 2 rare treasures, and they also had the engraving of an inscription master to bolster their strength. This Typhon came from a humble background, naturally he wouldn't have such things. This battle didn't seem fair, but Sky Fortune Kingdom's tournaments have always been so. Treasures and equipment were considered part of a soldier's inherent strength. In the midst of the battlefield, because of the disparity in equipment, if you were cut down by the enemy, could you then complain that it was unfair? It was impossible for the army to supply each soldier with rare equipment, thus as if a soldier wanted to prepare, then their family background also became a part of their strength, and even an important part. When Typhon came on stage, he drew out his 4-foot sword. Qin Xiao turned to Mui who was sitting beside him. "Mr. Mui, is that Typhon's sword also a treasure?" Mui stroked his beard and nodded. "Treasure indeed, but it is damaged." "Oh, damaged." After Mui said that, Qin Xiao also saw that the sword missed the tip. "It really was a damaged sword." Mui said, "Damaged equipment is of course worse than a whole one. Not only that but it is Typhon's only treasure, whereas Li Qi has 2. Their 2 levels of cultivation may be similar, but Typhon's martial skill manual is inferior to Li Qi's. This battle, Typhon will lose." Qin Xiao said, although he will lose, that this Typhon managed to get this far with a damaged sword is also amazing. If in this next battle he can manage to take 20 moves, I might promote into the army's martial hall. Xingxuan, take a good look at this battle. You too will enter the 5th layer of body transformation. Although you practice a specialized martial skill for women, all creatures are the same, so if you watch carefully it will help you. Qin Xiao's last few words were to Qin Xingxuan. She politely nodded and said, "Yes, grandfather." As soon as the referee commenced the start of the fight, that man named Li Qi rushed forwards with several fierce strikes. He hoped to end the battle as soon as possible. He had the advantage in every aspect. The quicker he finished this, the better. He began to utilize the secret skill passed down through the Li family, the 5 sacred mountain saber art. This kind of swordsmanship was overwhelming, as if a mountain were falling down upon you. Each slash and thrust was accompanied by an incomparably imposing sense of power. It was able to instantly overwhelm anyone of a lesser cultivation level. Even with an equal cultivation, it was difficult to defend against this strike that crushed down on you like innumerable mountains. Most would just succumb to the demolishing heavy attack. As soon as Li Qi wielded his saber, the air filled with the whistling of the wind, as if an entire orchestra were playing a battle song. The saber in his hand was 500 jins. It was the perfect combination to display the overwhelming power of the 5 sacred mountain saber art. If the enemy's weapon quality was less, then the weapon would simply break apart. Typhon saw Li Qi's come chopping down and his eyes hardened, his complexion changing. He knew of Li Qi's secret move. He sunk his waist and steadied his legs. With both hands gripping the broken sword, his body erupted with a flood of turbulent true essence that poured into the blade. Facing Li Qi's overwhelming strike, he could only meet him head-on with all of his strength. But as Typhon poured his true essence into the sword, his heart gave a slight skip. The true essence was flowing as if it were much smoother than before. Typhon had already had this sword for several months. Before now, when he poured his true essence into the blade, it was like pouring water into a drainage ditch. The sword couldn't absorb much true essence, and in fact wasted a lot. But this time the blade was sucking up his true essence like an eddying current. The smoothness of absorption was incomparable, and there wasn't a single feeling of waste. How can it be like this? Typhoon didn't have any time to think with Li Qi's saber coming down on him, so he simply cried out and cut his blade upward. With his common low-grade army martial skill Total Annihilation Strike, he met Li Qi's secret high-tier martial skill passed down through his family, the 5 Sacred Mountains saber art. Their blades collided, a loud explosion filled the air. The collision of true essence erupted into the air, and the floor of the area was smashed apart. Li Qi was forced backwards 3 or 4 feet, but Typhoon was also forced back a few steps. Evenly matched. Typhoon gasped and looked at the blade in his hand, his face filling with color of disbelief. He had never fought before with Li Qi before, and had only heard of him. After that strike now, he finally realized how fearful this man truly was. Before, he would have suffered some light wounds, not how he had managed to keep that saber of his in check. He knew with absolute certainty that it was not his own strength that increased, but this sword of his had changed. Was it because of the inscription symbol from yesterday? Typhoon did not understand exactly how inscriptions worked, but knew that they could strengthen weapons. Typhoon thought they might increase the sharpness of the blade, but after testing it out yesterday on several trees he did not feel anything different, so he had been disappointed. He had never realized that the inscription technique used true essence to enhance the strength of the weapon. Was this really the inscription symbol of an apprentice? How could it be so fierce? Although he did not understand the pricing of most inscriptions, in his heart he absolutely knew that with such strength and such a powerful effect, there was no way that this inscription could be bought with only 100 gold tael. With just a collision, Li Qi had been struck back down to reality. This man had taken his saber strike with that broken blade and had come out even, perhaps even higher. This man was terrifying. Good. Qin Xiao praised. The ordinary army martial skill was able to keep off Li Qi's 5 Sacred Mountain saber skill with a broken blade. This Typhoon is good. Very good. Mr. Mui, what do you think? Mui wrinkled his brow and was at a loss for words. Although he and Qin Xiao had about the same level of cultivation, he was also an inscription master, so his understanding of treasures naturally exceeded Qin Xiao. In that brief strike a moment ago, he clearly saw that Typhoon's broken blade was not any less amazing than Li Qi's saber, and that was because the true essence that poured from that blade had even shocked him. How could it be like this? Looking at the damaged blade, he could see that it wasn't a high-grade treasure. Could it be because of an inscription symbol? Chapter 20 Inscription Skill. Chapter 20 Inscription Skill. Bang! As Mr. Mui was thinking, Typhoon and Li Qi collided yet again in another dazzling shower of sparks. Both of them were violent and vicious warriors, each of their moves was met head-on with another, but Typhoon relied on a broken sword to evenly match Li Qi, and even the brilliance of the true essence that burst from his sword exceeded Li Qi's saber by far. In the next clash, Li Qi made a careless mistake and was scratched by Typhoon's sword. Although Li Qi's armor was also a rare treasure, the opposition's sword contained a dangerous true essence that pervaded and drilled through his body. Li Qi's face instantly turned ash-white as he almost spit a mouthful of blood. Even Qin Xiao noticed that the sword was strange. He looked at Mui and said, "It looks to me like I underestimated that sword. What rank of treasure would it be in the human steppe?" Mui replied, "It definitely is a lower rank treasure within the human steppe." He tapped his fingers against his arm rest as he pondered what the possible cause was. At this moment, Qin Xingxuan, who had been carefully observing the battle, opened her mouth and said, "Master, perhaps on this treasure was engraved a symbol by a great inscription master?" Mui said, "I also suspect this. I was thinking which master's skills this could belong to. Even if the sword were already damaged to this state, for it to be able to command such power." As they talked amongst themselves, the fight on the stage was reaching its finale. Li Qi had been injured and could no longer hold back anything else. It was time to use 6th type of the 5 Sacred Mountains saber skill. He had just learned this skill and was saving it as his killer move in the final match, but right now he had no choice but to use it, otherwise he would suffer defeat. Li Qi crossed his saber on his chest, and the true essence within him began to rumble as he said, "Typhoon, I acknowledge your strength, you are a true master. With your ordinary martial skills you have pushed me to the point of hurting my pride and have me use my strongest blow. But it ends now. Get ready to meet my final strike. The black dragon will descend from the mountains. Li Qi cried out as he poured the entirety of his true essence into his saber. The black saber suddenly shined with a brilliant and haughty orange light. Li Qi lifted the saber high up above his heads and aimed at Tai Feng, then slashed downwards in a fierce divide. At that moment, several horrifying and faint shades emerged in the air. This was the claws of the black dragon. He's already managed to form the black dragon shades. This Li Qi is truly accomplished in the Li family's saber arts. Tai Feng will find it impossible to resist this strike. As the black dragon rushed towards him, Tai Feng knew that this was Li Qi's strongest move. Although the black dragon contained an energy that would frighten most warriors, at this moment Tai Feng felt nothing in his heart but an incomparable calm. Without the slightest hint of fear, he gripped his sword with both hands. He could feel the thick fighting intention from the sword as if it were an old friend. F***ck your mom. You think you've won, but I will be the winner. Tai Feng's heart abandoned all needless thoughts. He let out a tremendous roar that cracked the air and compressed every last ounce of remaining true essence into his sword. The true essence in the blade had been compressed to its very limit. At this time it suddenly erupted with an overwhelming strength. A dazzlingly bright light emitted from all degrees as a volcanic true essence erupted from that sword. It turned into a brilliant rainbow that shot forward like a blazing meteor straight into the black dragon's shade. Overwhelming all opposition, overwhelming all enemies, overwhelming all creation. This was the skill of the overwhelming rune, instant violent strike. Bang! There was a huge explosion and the inconceivable occurred. The black dragon shade had been cut in half by Tai Feng's blade. Li Qi was flung off stage upside down like a rag doll as he spit blood. Qin Xiao's eyes lit as he saw this scene. True essence had condensed into reality. How was this possible? That bright light was clearly true essence, but to use true essence like that required at least the pulse condensation period for martial artists to use. Tai Feng was only at the bone forging boundary, so how? At this time on the field, as soon as Li Qi had been struck off stage, Tai Feng collapsed to his knees. His true essence had been completely spent. He supported himself with this sword as he kneeled. Both eyes gazed reverently at the flames that were traced from the inscription symbol. This symbol, did it help him itself? He held out his hand and gently stroked the 1-inch wide flame inscription. A stream of fighting spirit continually transmitted from the inscription, and Tai Feng felt a very close, almost familial bond with it. The referee hopped on stage and announced Tai Feng's victory. This was a stunning upset. The talented and rising star Li Qi had been defeated by Tai Feng. Qin Xiao looked deep at Tai Feng and said to Mui, "It seems I was right just now. How did the true essence change shape? How did Tai Feng do this? It likely wasn't some martial skill." "It appears so." Mui took a deep breath. His eyes showed a trace of shock. He said, "If I'm not wrong, then that is a skill of the inscription symbol. The inscriptions could change the flow of true essence and send out skills. In the Sky Fortune Kingdom, such techniques have been nearly all lost." Skill of the inscription? Qin Xiao was stunned. He did not completely understand inscription skills, but he had seen them before. 80 years ago when he commanded the army to fight the Eastern Sun Country, he had fought their generals and seen the skills of the inscription symbols at that time. To think that after a period of 80 years, he would see it once again. He thought on this and then said to a soldier, "Pass down the order, have Tai Feng come to see me." Yes. Tai Feng had not thought that Marshal Qin would ask to see him personally. This was truly the greatest of honors. In ordinary circumstances, the military officers did not have the qualifications to see Marshal Qin directly. Although he had passed through countless life and death situations, but as soon as he saw the marshal, an extremely heavy wave of pressure forced him to kneel. He said, "Tai Feng greets the marshal. Stand up." Qin Xiao waved. "I called you here to ask you a question. Where did your sword come from?" Reporting to the marshal, 3 months ago it was taken from the enemy after a battle. "Oh, let me have a look." "Yes." Tai Feng presented his sword. Qin Xiao flicked a finger on the blade as a clear sound rang in the air. "Thought it was long, He could tell there was a trace of disharmony. The sword was good, but it was broken. Qin Xiao showed the sword to Mui. Mui held the sword in his hands and locked his gaze onto the flame engraving. He reached out a hand and touched the inscription. He closed his eyes as he perceived the soul force. Mui stood still for a very long time. He had not said a single word, but Qin Xiao patiently waited. After a good period of time passed, Mui finally opened his eyes. He turned and let Qin Xingxuan hold it. It was impossible for her to tell anything from it, but he only wanted her to be able to feel this master's work. Qin Xingxuan held the sword to her body and let her soul force sink into the flame-engraved symbol. Because she was so focused, her pair of elegant eyebrows couldn't help but gently twitch. "How is it?" Mui asked Qin Xingxuan. Qin Xingxuan replied, "Xingxuan's talent is too poor. I only sensed that it was full of incomparably mysterious symbols and lines. It should stem from the hand of a master." Mui said, "It's normal to not be able to tell. After the inscription is finished, the secret symbols and runes will be hidden in the treasure. It is difficult to see, especially with an inscription this complex and intricate. It is startling, but only if there were more than I could found out more secrets." After Mui said that, Taifeng said, reporting to the marshal, Taifeng purchased this inscription symbol at the shop. "There were 2 for sale, but regrettably I only purchased one. If Master Mui has a need, I shall go to the shop to purchase another." Millimeter? Qin Xiao startled. "You bought this inscription? It wasn't originally on the sword." "Yes. I personally engraved it yesterday." Mui heard Taifeng's words and was immediately excited. He asked, "Where did you buy it at?" "The city square." "City square?" Mui paused. In his impression, the goods there were at most 100 or 200 gold taels. How would they sell an inscription symbol? Moreover, with Taifeng's family background, how could he afford it? Therefore Mui said with some doubt, "Your family is ordinary as far as I know. How did you afford such an expensive inscription symbol?" Taifeng hesitated and then said truthfully, "This is, at the time I purchased it, it was marked at 100 gold taels. In the end I was just able to afford this." "1 hun, how much was it?" The usually calm Mui's eyes widened like saucers and he panted. 100 gold taels. This sold at 100 gold taels. Taifeng had not expected Mui to react in such a big fashion. He said, "Yes, it was 100 gold taels. The city square's storekeeper said that it was an apprentice who made it." Taifeng had not expected Mui to react in such a big fashion. He said, "Yes, it was 100 gold taels. The city square's storekeeper said that it was an apprentice who made it." Apprentice? Like hell. Mui was surprised, but thought this was impossible for an apprentice inscriptionist. It should be that the storekeeper made an error. But who would be so stupid and wasteful to just throw away gold like this? It really was a miscarriage of justice to take something of a great inscription master that was worth several thousand gold taels and to sell it like some common cabbage. "Lead me to this place." "Yes, sir." Then, Mr. Mui took Qin Xingxuan along with him, and under Taifeng's directions, they rode a horse-drawn carriage straight to the city square. The horse-drawn carriage of the Qin estate might not be known by everyone in Sky Fortune City, but most recognized the 4 snow-white horses that drew it. As they passed the streets, pedestrians stopped to watch them, and stood aside as the carriage drove past. This was the respect given to Marshal Qin. The bright summer afternoon brought several hints of laziness with it. It made a person's whole body weak and languid and not wanting to move. In the city square's trading center, the fat storekeeper that had received Lin Ming before, was sitting in a rocking chair at the entrance. He lay down with a leafy fan covering his face, and was in the midst of falling asleep. Today's business was a bit slow, so the fat man was considering closing a bit earlier this afternoon. But at this moment, he heard a clear hoof beat that woke him up. He opened his eyes uncomfortably, and was thinking of reprimanding these people. Did they not know that horses were not allowed in the city square? However, as turned towards the sound, he immediately noticed the 4 snow-white horses, each the highest breed of thoroughbreds, and also the golden shield symbol. He nearly almost rolled out of his chair. "It's the martial quarters horse-drawn carriage. The fat storekeeper hurried to stand. Why would the marshal quarters come to the city square? He was wondering about this, but then was astonished as this carriage swiftly came to a halt in front of his own entrance. My God, what is this? The master of the carriage was coming into his own shop. When the carriage's curtain was lifted, the fat storekeeper saw an old man and a beautiful young girl step out. His rolls began to tremble. Mr. Mui, Miss Chin, how did these two famous figures of Sky Fortune City, these living Buddhas, decide to come to his little temple? This is it. Qin Xingxuan asked Tai Feng. When she had heard that the inscription symbol was on sale, she was also filled with excitement. Qin Xingxuan had an enormous interest in inscription since childhood, and after seeing Tai Feng and Li Qi fight, she yearned to learn that inscription technique. It is here, Tai Feng said as he led them to the front. Together with Qin Xingxuan and Mui, they entered the store. The fat storekeeper had a body like a meatball, but he still stood as straight as he could as if his back was against the wall. He didn't even dare breathe the same air as these two distinguished guests. Storekeeper, yesterday I bought an inscription symbol, do you remember? Tai Feng was at the 5th level of body transformation. He also resembled a walking steel golem. His whole body was covered with scars like he came from some faraway and dangerous battlefield. Naturally, he left a deep impression on the storekeeper. The storekeeper nodded. I remember, it was an apprentice's inscription symbol, 100 gold taels. The fat storekeeper was afraid. Was there some problem with the apprentice's inscription symbol? If it had any problems and these people came looking to account for it, then there was nothing he could do but lay down and die. T. He shouldn't have let that boy rent a spot. But still, it was only an apprentice-level inscription symbol, a second-tier item. Why would the marshal quarters be involved in this? I heard you have another one, where is it? Mui impatiently asked. The fat storekeeper pointed at a shelf in the corner, where a rough yellow piece of paper was pressed behind a glass pane. Mui took 3 steps and arrived in front of the shelf. He lifted the glass and then cautiously held the symbol paper in his hand like a baby. He felt the soul force fluctuations that came from the paper, and then sucked in a breath of cold air. His eyes were filled with bewilderment. How is it, master? Qin Xingxuan asked as she walked over. This inscription symbol. Mui took a few breaths to steady himself and calm down. Even he could not believe what he was saying. In this inscription, the soul force cannot surpass the 3rd stage of body transformation. It might even be lower. Qin Xingxuan felt her heart jump. She took the symbol paper and also examined it with her soul force. It really was as he had said. When Tai Feng had said the inscription symbol was the work of an apprentice, Qin Xingxuan had not believed it was possible and assumed he had been tricked, but now she had been proven wrong. Inconceivable. She said, is it possible that an inscription master intentionally suppressed their true strength to the 3rd level of body transformation, and created this symbol? Mui responded, the pulse condensation period and the Hutian stage have completely different qualities of soul force than someone in the lower levels of body transformation. Not only is it immeasurably difficult to suppress, but it may also cause harm to themselves. Not only is there no need or benefits to doing so, but it would also lower the quality of the inscription symbol. I truly cannot fathom the thoughts of the elder who created this. That fat storekeeper listened to the two discuss the symbol, and felt his brain short-circuit from all the conflicting emotions. He had originally thought that the inscription symbol had some defect, so they came to deal with him, but listening to these two, it seemed the inscription symbol had some significance, so they came to investigate. This is Mr. Mui. He was one of the top 3 inscription masters in the entirety of Sky Fortune Kingdom. Even he was shocked by how strong this inscription symbol was. The fat storekeeper felt a pang of regret. If he knew about this sooner, he would not have sold them at such a low price. But, those symbol papers were sold by some shabby-looking youth. How did he manage to obtain such a fierce inscription symbol? This storekeeper, do you remember who brought this inscription symbol in? Yes, of course I remember. The fat man nodded hurriedly. A young boy of about 15 or 16 in ordinary clothing brought it in. I also have his address. As the fat man said this, he quickly began flipping through his book of records. The trading center always kept a point of contact so they could deliver the sales of commission. A 15 to 16-year-old youth. As soon as Qin Xingxuan heard this, her mind jumped. Her first thought was that of Lin Ming, that young boy that had so thoroughly impressed her at the zither department. Was it him? Body transformation 3rd level or lower, inscription apprentice. Was it possibly him? Aware of these possibilities, Qin Xingxuan felt her heart tremble. If it was true, then the term genius was insufficient to describe him. He could only be described as an once-in-a-lifetime monstrous talent. The fat storekeeper was shaking as he rushed to find out the address. He looked at the shelf serial number and stuttered as he said, Great Clarity Pavilion. That boy lives in the Great Clarity Pavilion. That's the address that he wrote down. Great Clarity Pavilion? Let's go. Mui said. As soon as they boarded the carriage, Qin Xingxuan said with some concern, This address was left down 8 days ago. I don't know if he is still staying at Great Clarity Pavilion. People do not usually stay there too long. Qin Xingxuan assumed that Lin Ming was a guest staying there. Great Clarity Pavilion was one of Sky Fortune City's most luxurious restaurants. It had a feast hall and many guest rooms, but under ordinary circumstances it was only for temporary stays. Chapter 22, Strength and Delicacy. Chapter 22, Strength and Delicacy. These days Lin Ming had been practicing deboning with the flat back of a knife. He had taken half of the 95 gold and used it to purchase medicines. Now when he was training, he was able to leave a 7-inch deep indentation in the ironwood tree with each punch. His strength was not any lower than 1500 jins. However, he had still not reached the boundary of formlessness as described in the Chaotic Virtues Combat Meridians Manual, where each fist flowed like silk. The so-called flowing like silk was merely controlling one's own strength. As soon as he accomplished this as described in the Chaotic Virtues Combat Meridians, then, if he were to punch at the ironwood tree, he would leave the bark unblemished, but the inner would be shatter. Lin Ming had still not reached this flowing like silk boundary. Lin Ming drank a bowl of medicinal soup and stripped off his shirt. He had practiced deboning like this every day, and through this method, was slowly beginning to understand how to control his strength. The kitchen was hot, and using the back of the knife, the strength Lin Ming consumed was increased by several times. He even activated the true primal chaos formula at the same time he was cutting. Rivulets of sweat quickly flowed down his body. At this time, he did not that his inscription symbol had already caused a not-so-small controversy. Mr. Mui, Miss Qin, I would like to personally welcome you to our establishment. If you would like to come in, we have already specially prepared a private room for you. Sister Lan had already received the news ahead of time and arrived at the main entrance to greet the esteemed guests. The Great Clarity Pavilion and other high-class restaurants and special rooms prepared for dignitaries and other high-profile guests. These guests often did not like to eat in the open, so in order to create a more comfortable environment for them, there were several private rooms that were set up. Xiao Lian, prepare the best blue spring tea we have any, inform the kitchen to prepare well. Bring out the best dishes. Although Great Clarity Pavilion often entertained many honored guests, Mui and Qin Xingxuan were the absolute cream of society. Regard if it was the martial quarters or the imperial palace, they had several executive master chefs that were beyond the skills of Great Clarity Pavilion's chefs. There was simply no need for them to come here to eat a meal. Qin Xingxuan said, It is unnecessary. This time my master and I have come here to look for someone. Oh. Looking for someone? Yes, I hear you have a 15 to 16-year-old boy staying here. About as tall as me, and his last name is Lin. Qin Xingxuan said Lin Ming's last only, because it was common practice for guest rooms to only have the last name registered. For instance, Mr. Lin. Qin Xingxuan guessed that Lin Ming might even be with his master. If so, the registration wouldn't be under Lin. A 15 or 16-year-old youth. Sister Lan thought about this, then asked Xiao Lian, Have we recently had a young man stay here? Xiao Lian shook her head and said, I don't recall, but I will check the logbook to see. After Xiao Lian left, Sister Lan entertained Qin Xingxuan and Mui as they sat down. After a period of time, Xiao Lian came back saying, I checked the logbooks, and haven't seen any recording of a young man coming in recently. The Great Clarity Pavilion was an establishment mostly frequented by professionals and top-level figures on business. They tended to be older individuals. There were very few families that came in and of course rarely young men. Mui frowned and said, "Not in the last 10 days. How? 8 days ago the young man was at the Great Clarity Pavilion." Sister Lan seriously thought of this and said, "Our Great Clarity Pavilion doesn't have many young boys or girls that stay here. Perhaps, if you are looking for someone with the last name Lin, our kitchen does have one and he has been here a month, but he shouldn't be the one Miss Qin is looking for." Sister Lan thought that Qin Xingxuan and Mui came to look for a junior of some aristocratic family. Although Lin Ming had an interesting story in the kitchen so far, his family background was ordinary and his martial arts cultivation was not high. He shouldn't have had any dealings with the martial quarters. "Kitchen," Qin Xingxuan said with a hint of surprise. "Millimeter. He is a deboner. He is a very responsible young boy. It's a job where one slices the meat." Sister Lan saw Qin Xingxuan did not know what the occupation of deboning involved, so she explained to her. "Slicing meat? Not possible." Mui heard it and did not entertain any hopes. How could an esteemed inscription master be a meat slicer? But Qin Xingxuan did not give up. She pressed on. "What name was he called?" "I'm not very sure. He speaks very little. We only know his last name is Lin. He should be working in the kitchen at this time. Would you like to take a look?" "Millimeter, lead the way." Qin Xingxuan nodded as she stood up. They followed Sister Lan and arrived at the Great Clarity Pavilion's kitchen. Upon opening the door, Qin Xingxuan felt a billow of hot air and steam wrap around her. It was late in the summer, and combined with the kitchen heat, it was unbearably hot. Qin Xingxuan simply revolved her soul force and scattered the dry, scalding air, and entered the kitchen along with Sister Lan. The kitchen chefs widened their eyes in amazement. Some of the young men's jaws almost reached the floor. Great Clarity Pavilion had many esteemed guests entering and leaving, so these waiters and chefs had a broad experience and knowledge of who was important. Many of them recognized Qin Xingxuan and didn't believe their eyes. In the entire Sky Fortune City there was nobody who had not heard of her name or knows of her outstanding talent. Why would she come to the Great Clarity Pavilion's kitchen? Sister Lan finally stopped and pointed at a room just off the corner of the kitchen, over there. Great Clarity Pavilion's kitchen was very large, and Lin Ming worked in his own little room. He would slice the vicious beast meat here and then have it sent off to the freezer for preservation. The door opened and Qin Xingxuan peeked inside. She could only see a youth wearing just a pair of green pants. His slightly muscled upper back was bare, and he was holding a common bone knife as he cut into the body of a vicious beast. The youth's back was facing Qin Xingxuan. Viewed from behind, the young man had a symmetrically muscled and fit back, with skin tanned from the sun, and with a healthy sheen from exercise. Perhaps it was because of the kitchen heat or maybe it was because the boy was working very hard, but his back was entirely covered with beads of sweat, and it gave off a daunting sense of strength. Was he Lin Ming? Qin Xingxuan was unsure, so she approached several steps. She saw the young man's profile. It was a young and tender face with a resolute expression. At first glance it was not noticeable, but looking a bit longer could cause the heart to palpitate and leave a sense that he was an unforgettably lofty character. Although she only saw a small side of him, Qin Xingxuan recognized that focused and sharp look, and it began to overlap with the image she had of Lin Ming from the zither department. She did not know why, but it caused her mind to jump and a slight flush crept up her neck. She hadn't imagined the scene in front of her. The exquisite inscription symbol that required fine control of soul force and a delicate, gentle touch, was the same as this young man that was barbarically cutting the animal meat. These two completely contradictory ideas appeared in the same boy, the complicated and mysterious noble beauty, and the simple strength in contrast with each other gave her heart a momentary sinking feeling. At this moment Lin Ming turned around. The kitchen had many people passing through, and when Lin Ming practiced he often ignored his surroundings, but he felt a difference that there were some people observing him. It might have been that there was someone coming to look for him. But as he saw it was Qin Xingxuan, he paused. Qin Xingxuan? Why did she come to the Great Clarity Pavilion? For him. Qin Xingxuan had noted the simple knife in Lin Ming's hand. It was less than a foot-long bone knife, and there was nothing special or particular about it, but what astonished Qin Xingxuan was that Lin Ming had unexpectedly been using the back of the knife to cut the meat. This was really. Her gaze moved to the cuts of meat that Lin Ming had sliced up. The sections were consistent, even, and neat. Were these made using the back of a knife? Miss Qin, were you looking for me? Lin Ming asked. He saw Mui from behind and his heart shrank. This old man gave him a feeling of absolute strength, as if some invisible and constant force was pushing down on him. His background was most likely a top powerhouse, perhaps some master in the pulse condensation stage or even the rarer Hutian stage. Little brother, are you Lin Ming? The old man asked Lin Ming with a smile on his face. Lin Ming nodded. He couldn't conceal anything from a master at this level. He guessed it was because of the sale of the 2 inscription symbols were brought to this old man's attention. Although he had already assumed that the inscription symbols would be brought to others' attention, he didn't think it would happen so quickly. This kind of circumstance might be a stroke of luck, but it could also be a calamity. If it was luck, then his inscription symbol prices would sharply rise in prestige and price, and he would be able to obtain a fortune he could use to buy some medicines to cultivate. But if it were calamity, then because his strength was low, he would be like a rhinoceros that was hunted and killed for its horn. Lin Ming had no ability to protect himself and might even be put under house arrest by certain parties and forced to create inscription symbols all day. Before Lin Ming had entered the auction house, he had considered all these points. He had thought of changing his identity and looks, but he didn't know any profound skills to do that, and moreover was only 15 years old, so any illusion would easily be broken. Sooner or later his inscription skills would have attracted attention and there would have been major forces investing him. He was just a young boy at the first level of body transformation, and had no great background. Using some cheap parlor tricks to disguise himself from these major powers was no different from some moron spouting nonsense. Therefore, Lin Ming did not plan to hide his identity, and thought of a different way. Chapter 23 Xiantian. Chapter 23 Xiantian. Lin Ming knew it was useless to conceal who he was, so he decided that he would instead fabricate the identity of a master in order to placate any questions. The inscription techniques were not possible to be self-learned, much less to the point that he had at such a young age. In the eyes of a reasonable person, it was most likely that Lin Ming had some sort of legendary inscription master backing him, even if this character did not actually exist. Of course, there were also risks. The world had many crazy people, some who would even disregard the existence of such a person. If Lin Ming ran into such a person, he would be in danger. But Lin Ming didn't run from such risks, instead he faced them head-on. He cultivated martial arts. How could he run from something just because there was the risk of danger? If he feared every shadow and shade, then it would be impossible for him to reach the peak of the martial path. Mui saw Lin Ming go on alert, and he said to everyone behind him, "Leave." Quickly, everyone had left this small room, included Tai Feng. Soon there was only Mui and Qin Xingxuan. Mui circulated his soul force, and an invisible bubble surrounded the entire room. "Little brother, I don't have any ill intentions, this is merely my sound sealing skill. Under it, no one will be able to hear what we are saying. I just want to ask you, are you the one that created that flame-engraved inscription symbol?" It was a tradition for the inscription master to have their own personalized image that they used on the inscription symbols. It identified who they were, and represented the spirit behind their inscription path. Lin Ming's was a raging flame that represented his desire to tread the martial path. Qin Xingxuan held her breath, her eyes wide and unblinking as she waited for his answer. Lin Ming hesitated, nodded, and said, "It was me." Since he decided to act, then he would do so thoroughly and completely. Only then would he be in a strong position and others would believe that the mysterious master behind him was a legendary figure that could not be offended. Although they had already expected this, after hearing Lin Ming's affirmation, Mui gasped, and in particular Qin Xingxuan's eyes widened with shock. She was also an inscriptionist, so she knew that it was immeasurably difficult to become an inscription master at the tender age of 15. Qin Xingxuan understood that for every mountain, there would always be a higher one. Sky Fortune Kingdom was only a small state in the entirety of Sky Spill continent. If though she was talented herself and considered the best here, if she had left for other lands, then perhaps she would only be one in any countless number of talents. But Qin Xingxuan still had not left the country before. After all, even in the surrounded few countries she was the top number 1 talent. There was not a single contemporary around her that could compare with a tenth of her. 6th rank martial talent, in addition to an inscription talent that was second to none in Sky Fortune Kingdom, Qin Xingxuan was truly blessed by the heavens and had not found a match in those of her generation. She had never felt a half-ounce of frustration at her age, so Qin Xingxuan had grown up with a self-belief of arrogance. But today, she was suddenly defeated by a youth of the same age. Although his strength was less than hers, his talent and ability and accomplishments in inscription had outstripped her by miles. Concerning inscription technique, it could be said that she was a little fledgling that hadn't learnt to fly, and he was a soaring eagle that rules the skies. The gap was simply too big. She was frustrated, but Qin Xingxuan was not depressed or hopeless. She was actually excited, because now that she had found a goal, she could then strive to improve herself. To this young boy, Qin Xingxuan was filled with curiosity. She also hoped to become his friend and compare notes with him in the future. She could learn from these exchanges and further increase her understanding of inscription techniques. But she remembered that before, her invitation had been rejected. Qin Xingxuan felt wronged. Girls were naturally thin-skinned, shy, and proud. Beautiful girls from aristocratic families were all like this. Even if in her heart she wanted to become his friend, but because of that single time, she was not able to take her own initiative to invite him again. After Mui heard Lin Ming's answer, he finally managed to compose himself from the sense of disbelief he felt. This truly was unbelievable. He had originally guessed that the inscription symbol's creator did not have a cultivation that surpassed the 3rd level of body transformation, but it seemed he was wrong. Lin Ming's cultivation was only at the peak of the 1st layer, but because of his solid foundation and the density and precision of his soul force, it had given the illusion that it was higher than it was. Because of this dense soul force, he was afraid that this youth practiced the top-tier martial skill manual. The kind of skill manual that only the most ancient and powerful of clans would have. Moreover, this young boy was extremely assiduous and dedicated. For instance, he had just cut apart that vicious beast now with the back of a knife. Perhaps this young boy came from an ancient clan, or had the backing of a supreme master. Thinking of this, Mui took a deep breath and asked with a respectful tone, "Excuse me for asking, but may I request the name of your esteemed master?" Mui had a high and aloof position with the Sky Fortune Kingdom. Even if he approached the emperor, he would no need to bow. But from this respectful expression it was sufficient to see the deep awe and reverence he had for this supreme and mysterious master behind Lin Ming. Lin Ming said, Sorry, senior, but my master once told me that to speak his name was a taboo. The truth is my parents do not know that I have apprenticed myself to a master. When I was 12 years old my master found me and taught me some skills. Lin Ming had lived in Green Mulberry City since childhood, so this was easy to investigate. He only said as little as he could to avoid being suspected. Mui said, "I apologize for being crass with my words. For an elder of such high skill, they tour the 4 corners of the world, so it is difficult to glimpse their whereabouts. I should not inquire so rashly, it's just that little brother's inscription technique was so outstanding that it is unlikely to belong to someone from the Sky Fortune Kingdom. Likely is someone from an ancient sect." Mui said that he did not want to ask who Lin Ming's master was, but he was still vague and wanted to ask for some information. After all, a legendary master like this was rare to see even once. If one does, then perhaps it could be their own stroke of luck. Mui had already been stuck at the peak of the Hutian boundary for a very long time. He had always wanted to pass the threshold to the next stage. But without guidance, the single-step simple and impassable ravine. In the 8 years of Sky Fortune Kingdom's history, there had been many pulse condensation martial artists. And in those were many talents that would even arrive at the Hutian stage. However, disregarding the peerless talents that had entered the 7 profound valleys, then Sky Fortune Kingdom had not had a single Xiantian master. If the step from bone forging to pulse condensation was a little stream to pass, then the path from Hutian to Xiantian was like a raging ocean. If one did not depend on the direction from a sect, then depending on one's own skill and personal discovery, the possibility to enter the Xiantian stage was close to zero. It was already too late for Mui to enter into a sect. His only hope was to encounter a mighty elder who was able to give him a pointer or two, and thus also give him the hope that he could one day dream of crossing into the Xiantian level. He did not ultimately seek to enter the Xiantian level, he only wanted to know the direction, to give him a goal so he wouldn't remain clueless and lost for the rest of his life. Lin Ming said, "My master is a recluse," but he had once said that he had entered a sect. After Mui heard this, he felt a bit envious. He did not have the good fortune to enter a sect, but Lin Ming's master had already left his sect. He said, "Your master's cultivation must have been very high if he left his sect to go traveling. He had probably reached the limit of some high boundary. Perhaps he was above the Xiantian stage?" To Mui, the Xiantian stage was an immeasurably distant ideal. For martial artists that were not in a sect, let alone the Xiantian stage, the stages above it must be even more unimaginable. Hearing Mui's question, Lin Ming finally understood the intentions of this old man. His interest in this so-called master of his was very strong. His eyes were eager and full of earnest. He must have been looking for some answers for his own cultivation. It was very difficult to practice oneself. After all, Mui was at such an old age, he had probably reached his own limits. Thinking of this, Lin Ming considered the memories of the elder's soul fragment. These memories, although there were some memories of martial arts cultivation, they were not complete. But there was not much value, so it was easy to say a thing or two. Lin Ming said, "I don't know what boundary master is at, but master once said the martial way is divided into two major parts." He was now contemplating the second part. "Oh, which two parts?" Mui's eyes lit up. He feared missing even a single word, for he knew that the opportunity to listen to the words from a learned senior were truly precious. Qin Xingxuan's eyes were also bright, and she did not blink as she listened to Lin Ming with reverent attention. Chapter 24 Understanding. Chapter 24 Understanding. Lin Ming said, "Martial arts are divided into two major parts. First, cultivate the martial path, and then grasp the principles to attain enlightenment. To cultivate the martial path is to cultivate the body. To enlighten oneself is to cultivate the soul." Master often said that the life was a boundless sea of bitterness. Cultivating was the path of traversing the waters. To cultivate the body was to build a boat that could cross the sea, and cultivating the soul was to create oars to move the boat. If one does not cultivate the body, then the boat would not be steady or strong, a storm would easily capsize it. If one does not cultivate the soul, then their motivation and will would not be enough, and even if their predestined death was near, they would be unable to arrive at the distant shores. But the cultivation of the body and the cultivation of the soul is the difference in transition from the Hutian to the Xiantian stage. Before Hutian, the martial artist will cultivate the body; after Xiantian, the martial artist will cultivate the soul. After Xiantian, cultivating the soul. As soon as Mui heard this, he was startled, and felt that he would faint. No wonder all these years which he had been practicing, he had actually been unable to take that tiny step. He realized that he had been headed the wrong direction the entire time. He had not imagined the Xiantian stage to be like this. He muttered, "And what is the meaning of Xiantian?" Lin Ming said, "Master once said that the answer lies in how a baby breathes in the womb. He said that when humans are babies in the womb, they cannot breathe through their nose or mouth, but must depend on the mother to give them sustenance through their connection only. This is how they breathe. This is the characteristics of Xiantian. After the human is born, then they can breathe through the nose and mouth. This worldly air is filled with impurities that gradually accumulate. This is the characteristics of Hutian. In the Xiantian stage, the soul enters a state of incomparable tranquility and peace. The body changes the way they interact with their surroundings, and the soul becomes aware of the world and is able to communicate with nature, even being able to actuate the power of the heavens and earth with soul force. That is the true Xiantian. But from Hutian to Xiantian one must cut off every route in order to pass through and return to the state of being in the womb. So, I see, that's how it is. Mui muttered under his breath. His eyes showed both admiration and dismay. This young boy casually tossed out a few words that were akin to ancient enlightenments. If this boy had these teachings, guided by the top-tier Xiantian skill manual, then he would soon become a martial arts master. The sects and clans were able to rely on their heritage and legacies. A martial artist that tried to fumble his way through would not find it possible to think of these things. Mui lamented, "How laughable. To think that I reached pulse condensation at 36 years of age and then reached Hutian at 50 years of age, and afterwards I spent 60 years exhausting all my efforts to step into the Xiantian realm. And I had been wrong the entire time. I had started down the wrong path all this time. I have wasted 60 years. Lamentable. Truly lamentable." Mui's face was excited and yet his emotions were complex. Lin Ming stood at the side and watched, his heart sighing. This old man did not inherit the legacies and yet had wanted to step into the Xiantian boundary. This was naturally hopeless. One needed the legacy and understandings of a sect to accomplish this, but which sect would not stubbornly control their secrets from spreading? Not only that, but from Hutian to Xiantian one needed to return their soul to a state of being in a womb. This required the most precious and rare of medicines. These medicines' methods of production and rare materials were tightly controlled by the sects. Not to mention the common people, but even the royal family could not purchase it. So even if Lin Ming told Mui these memories of his, even if he wanted to use them to advance into the Xiantian stage, it was simply not possible. Therefore Lin Ming said, "Senior, I will say frankly that Master once said that if one does not have the support of a clan, even if one obtained a skill manual that allowed them to enter the Xiantian stage, it would still be impossible." Mui said, I know, it's just that I have long striven to reach the Xiantian stage. It is my lifelong wish. Even if I cannot achieve this wish of mine, but to at least let me see its direction and to know where I was wrong, then I can also die in peace and without regret." Even though Mui said these words easily, the tone behind them was lonely. Lin Ming also unavoidably sighed with emotion. If he hadn't obtained that mystical magic cube, then perhaps he too would be like Mui. After reaching the Hutian stage he would forever try to track down that illusory lifelong dream of reaching the Xiantian realm, and would eventually hold these regrets even when he died. Mui reflected for a long time, and finally said to Lin Ming, "Little friend, I feel like old friends even after meeting for the first time. If this little friend does not mind my old age, I would like to become good friends with you." Lin Ming also had a favorable impression of the Mui who had earnestly pursued martial arts his entire life. He said, "Lin Ming also would like to become your friend." "Haha. Then no other day is as lucky as today. Let us go downstairs and feast at the Great Clarity Pavilion. We will drink wine and speak fast and free. How about it, good friend?" Lin Ming hesitated slightly, and then agreed. He also said, "Senior, about the inscription technique, I would like to ask Senior to keep it a secret for me." Although Lin Ming created an imaginary master for himself, he also wanted to avoid those that were blinded by greed and took risks no matter what. It was therefore better to be low-key about these inscription techniques. Mui guessed correctly Lin Ming's worries and said, "Little brother Lin, feel relieved. As long as the martial quarters of Sky Fortune City exists, I guarantee your absolute safety. As long as little brother meets any trouble at all, then just send me a sound transmitting talisman and I shall handle it personally. About this, but I may now know everything, but why would little brother Lin have to sell the inscription symbol and also work at the Great Clarity Pavilion? Is it for practice?" Listening to Mui ask this, Lin Ming forced a smile and said, "It's because of economic reasons. Master taught me but never gave me any money. My family is ordinary, so it is not enough for me to cultivate the martial path. Like that, it must be a true martial artist's way. No anger, no extravagance, no greed, no laziness, and true hardship to forge the spirit. Your master must have consciously made this informed and experienced decision, as he naturally has his own reasons and truth. Such being the case, although I do not know if this goes against your master's opinion, but if little brother Lin would still like to sell your inscription symbols, I could buy them at market price. If it is that flame-engraved inscription symbol, would 3,000 gold taels be enough?" After Lin Ming heard this price his heart almost leapt out of his chest. 3,000 gold taels. 3,000 gold taels, but since he had 3, that was 9,000 gold taels. Although Lin Ming had expected his inscription symbols to rise in price, he had not thought he could receive 9,000 gold taels. What concept was 9,000 gold taels? Lin Ming's family's restaurant was also valued at 3,000 gold taels. If he could buy that restaurant, then his parents would not have to work so hard every day. He would have 6,000 gold taels left over and could use it for medicines. He could buy any body transformation pill or altering muscle pill and eat them like rice. As for blood ginseng and other medicines, he could eat one and throw one away, because to Lin Ming, creating another inscription symbol was an easy matter. Lin Ming quieted the excitement in his heart and said to Mui, "Many thanks, Senior." Mui naturally saw Lin Ming's joy. When Lin Ming had been with his master, he had lived a simple and poor life, but now he had suddenly arrived at this lively capital city. A 15-year-old young man would find it hard to resist all the wonders and amazements and treasures that the world had to offer. Mui said, "Little brother Lin's inscription symbol is naturally at this price. Also, please do not call me Senior. My name is Mui, my full name is Mu Yizhue, by just Mui is fine." This, Lin Ming hesitated slightly. Although he did not know who this old man was, he only needed to look at Qin Xingxuan's attitude of respect to suspect that this man's status was high. But Lin Ming was not a person affected by conventions. Since Mui said so, then let it be so. He simply nodded in agreement. Mui smiled and said, "Xingxuan, let's have Great Clarity Pavilion set aside a room for a banquet. I'd like to have a drink with little brother Lin." Qin Xingxuan had been silent. She had also been carefully listening to Lin Ming's explanation of what it meant to be Xiantian. Now she heard Mui say this, she said excitedly, "Yes, master." When the staff of Great Clarity Pavilion heard that Mui was arranging a banquet and had asked Lin Ming to drink, everyone blanched. What kind of person was Mui? He was the martial quarters seat of honor official that was invited to serve at court. Qin Xingxuan's master was also the tutor of the crown prince. The crown prince would ascend the throne in the future, and Mui would be the emperor's teacher. Not only that, but Mui's cultivation was immeasurably deep, and he was also skilled in inscription techniques and was skilled in astronomy, geography, and the ancient art of divination. He truly was an outstanding person. Even the emperor had to give him 3 points of respect. But he actually asked Lin Ming, the deboning boy, to eat a meal. Moreover, as the two left the kitchen, it seemed they were speaking very familiarly, like they were contemporaries. What sort of background did Lin Ming have? If his real background was not small, would he willingly come to the Great Clarity Pavilion for deboning work? As the saying goes, the gentleman stood far from the kitchen. The kitchen, and especially the butcher's job, was always despised and looked down upon by martial artists and the scholar. Lin Ming had deboning skills that they admired, but it was difficult to say that it was a refined work. What background is that spare ribs chopper, little Lin? I don't really know. The two waiters who were serving the guests could not help but chat amongst themselves while they were serving. They were both dedicated staff that served the high-level guests, and were each around 20 years of age, with outstanding looks and also proficient at the fine arts of poetry and painting. They first saw Mui and Qin Xingxuan enter the Great Clarity Pavilion and were shocked. After all, this type of honored guests was rare, and once it happened there was a reward of 10 gold taels for good service, which was equivalent to 2 months of wages. But they had not actually thought that they came to look for Lin Ming. The banquet dishes were simple, but very exquisite in taste and texture. The liquor was several hundred gold taels and was called Red Dragon Liquor. It was specially prepared via a secret recipe and mixed in with a variety of rare herbs. A martial artist who drank this could cure their internal injuries and promote a stronger and fitter body along with a higher degree of cultivation. However, the brewing method was complex and the materials used were precious. Let alone Lin Ming, even the juniors of the aristocracy could not afford to savor it. In the banquet, Mui wanted to ask Lin Ming if he would like to stay at the martial quarters, but Lin Ming thought it would inconvenient to practice martial arts there while preventing people from discovering his secrets, so he politely declined. Mui was forced to give up, but in light of these his opinion of Lin Ming was heightened. Before leaving, He left behind the 9,000 gold taels along with a gold-purple VIP card. Through this card it was possible to receive a 10% discount from every shop that was under the jurisdiction of the Chamber of Commerce, and in Skyfortune City nearly every large ship was under them. He had finally managed to attain 9,000 taels of gold. He looked at this thick gold banknote and felt very excited. His blood boiled and finally proudly raised his head. 9,000 gold taels, and he would send 3,000 gold taels to his parents. He would have enough left over to buy medicine to easily break into the second stage of body transformation. If he obtained the precious medicines and increased their effect with inscription techniques, then later even breaking through the pulse condensation period would be an easy matter. He has doomed to go far down the path of martial arts. If in the past Zhu Yang was like a mountain that Lin Ming could only cross with immense effort, now Zhu Yang could only be a stepping stone on his road of martial arts. Lin Ming would only step on it to reach a higher peak. Lin Ming was in a sterling mood. He passed on a sound-transmitting talisman to inform Lin Xiaodong. "Dong Dong, let's go, today I will treat you to some shopping. I'll see you at the 100 Treasure Hall's entrance." Lin Xiaodong had helped Lin Ming many times. This type of sentiment was priceless. And now that his own situation was better because he had come into possession of riches, he would naturally help him back. A man must always repay favors. Go shopping. After Lin Xiaodong sees the sound-transmitting talisman, he thought to himself, this crazy guy also has money to use sound-transmitting talismans. Chapter 25 World Peace is my duty. Chapter 25 World Peace is my duty. After Lin Xiaodong arrived at the 100 Treasures Hall, Lin Ming was already waiting there. "Brother Lin, what sort of thing did you want to buy? Did you manage to sell those 3 symbol papers?" Lin Ming smiled and said, "I ran into some good luck and sold out." "Nu." Lin Xiaodong cried out exaggeratedly. What fool was taken advantage of? This could also be an omen. He was a bit worried and said, "Brother Lin, you sold so many, if people come to look for us in the future they might beat up us brothers." Lin Ming snapped, "Humph. You actually think I created some fake inscriptions to trick people? I'm not saying you intentionally tricked people, I am just thinking what happens if your inscription symbols don't work. If we spent 100 gold taels today, when the time comes we may not be able to repay the money." Lin Ming smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry, there is absolutely no problem. Let's just go shopping." Lin Ming was saying this as soon as he stepped directly into the entrance of the 100 Treasure Hall. Lin Xiaodong gave him a silly look. He thought that they would only meet here, and then perhaps go somewhere else like the city square or some other small place to go shopping. He did not expect they would go straight to the 100 Treasure Hall. This place frequently sold items at several hundred or thousands of gold. It was one of the most luxurious shops in all of Skyfortune City. "My brother, my own dearest big brother, are we really going shopping here?" "Millimeter. It's here," Lin Ming said as he entered the store. The shopkeeper somewhat recognized Lin Ming as he was also in ordinary clothing, and was young and small of stature. This was a very conspicuous look, and after a little thought, the shopkeeper remembered that Lin Ming was the youth who had tried to sell him inscription symbols a few days ago. The storekeeper was immediately impatient and said, "You again, I told you that I will not take your inscription symbols." Lin Ming also naturally remembered this 100 Treasure Hall storekeeper. Initially when he visited the private shops none of the storekeepers had treated him with respect. These storekeepers were in truth not the owners. The bosses were usually some rich character and would not often be in the store. They would hire some clerk or shopkeeper to take charge of the store's business. Of course, their salaries were also tied to performance, so these shopkeepers would naturally treat the juniors of wealthy families with respect in order to earn some percentage of profits. Lin Ming still remained salty from the experience. Lin Ming said, "My inscription symbols sold. I'm here today to do some shopping." "Sold?" The shopkeeper's eyes showed a faint touch of contempt. With his experience, this inscription symbols were not worth any money. With their cost, at most it would be a few dozen gold taels. This country bumpkin was truly a hillbilly. If he thought that a few dozen taels of gold made him a rich man, then that really was funny. What a ridiculous boy. The storekeeper did not throw him out though. 100 Treasure Hall had not listed a rule that said only those with money were permitted to come. Lin Ming looked at the dazzling pavilion's shelves that were stacked high with precious materials and rare goods. It really was amazing to see. The 100-year ginseng that Lin Xiaodong had purchased for him could only be considered inferior goods here. There were also rare and precious medicines, materials, masterclass inscription symbols, even treasures that were several thousand gold taels. Lin Ming casually said, "Xiaodong, is there anything you want to buy?" Lin Xiaodong forced a smile and said, "Brother Lin, what crazy song are you singing today?" Although it doesn't cost anything to take a peek, did you not see the look the storekeeper gave us like we were some bumpkins? It really made my whole body uncomfortable. Lin Ming said, "He's just a small-minded idiot, there's no need to care about what he thinks. If you aren't going to choose something then I'll help you. Or you buy a flexible armor." Lin Xiaodong shook his head like a rattle. "Brother Lin, let's not waste our time. If I choose something in the 100 Treasure Hall then we won't have the money to pay and they'll come after us. Think about it. When that time comes, you will run faster, but I'm a bit fatter than you so I'll fall behind and get beat up." Lin Ming couldn't find the words to respond, so he said, "When have I wasted your time? What time have you not thought of these evil plans? Look at me, I am an honest and good-natured person, pity me." Lin Ming laughed and opened his clothes a little. Near his chest pocket there were the edges of golden banknotes. He said, "Well, is this not money?" Lin Xiaodong saw those numerous golden banknotes in a red envelope and froze for a moment. He felt his mind go blank and his eyes were sluggish. They are banknotes worth 1,000 gold taels each. It actually turned out to be 1,000 gold tael banknote. Moreover, he could see from the thickness that there was more than one, perhaps up to 10,000 gold taels. Up to 10,000 gold taels. What was this? Lin Xiaodong short-circuited and he swayed on his feet. "Brother Lin, you robbed people? It's not right, even with your martial arts you should not steal so much." Hearing this Lin Xiaodong mutter, Lin Ming's forehead was full of black lines. "My God, this guy," he reluctantly said, "I got the money for selling inscriptions, you just do not believe me." "Inscription symbol? You said those 3 toilet papers were inscription symbols? You sold, how much did they sell for?" 3,000 gold taels. 3,000. Lin Xiaodong's chubby face began to tremble. He was shocked, but still managed to lower his voice in fear that others would hear him. "You sold them for 3,000 gold taels? You said you had practiced for 1 month and you could somehow create an inscription symbol that could sell for 3,000 gold taels?" Lin Ming nodded. Lin Xiaodong was his best friend and good brother. He did not want to hide anything from him, and furthermore could not hide. If he wanted help Lin Xiaodong with some money, then he would also need him to understand what happened. Moreover, in the future he would most likely be contacted by Qin Xingxuan, Mui, or other high-level persons, and it would be impossible to hide the truth from Lin Xiaodong. "You are simply insulting my intelligence," Lin Xiaodong exclaimed. "You've only practiced 1 month and you can create an inscription symbol like that? You think I am some little 3-year-old that you can trick into thinking cabbage leaves are rare medicines or something?" Lin Ming shrugged. "The facts are facts. If you do not believe me then there is nothing I can do." "Big bro, oh brother Lin, don't play with me, just tell me what happened." Lin Ming sighed and said, "Good, I'll tell you but you have to promise you won't say anything." "This is a promise," Lin Xiaodong immediately announced. "Millimeter, well, the truth is I have a secret mater. When I was 12 years old, that year my master appeared and said that my talent was good, and I had good intelligence and a grand destiny. He wanted me to maintain world peace so he gave me the duty to do so and compelled me to work as his apprentice. Finally, I began to study inscription technique with him." As if Lin Xiaodong felt like he had eaten a fly. "Brother Lin, can you be serious about it?" Lin Ming said, "I'm not lying to you, I really do have a master." "Knock it off, if you have a master and studied inscription for many years then why did you ask me what inscription technique was?" Lin Ming said, "My master only taught me the skills and did not give me any money. As for the inscription technique, Although I studied it, I did not know if it was of any use until you told me. Then I knew that I could use it to make money. Damn it. Lin Xiaodong felt as if the world had gone crazy. This is like casually picking up a little kitten to raises and feeding and petting it for several years and then finding it turn into the most beautiful woman, and then having her be the overthrown demon emperor's legendary clan princess who just happened to fall in love with you. It was the exact same chance. Good. Well, you understand now. Let's go shopping. Lin Ming pulled soulless Lin Xiaodong and continued to select flexible armors. Lin Xiaodong was not an ambitious person and he did not like to practice martial arts. He was just diligent enough to be able to preserve his status as a direct descendant in the Lin family. Lin Ming thought a flexible armor would be good as a life insurance. What material is this flexible armor? Lin Ming asked. The storekeeper impatiently looked at Lin Ming and said, "It is a high-quality treasure of the shop. The description is in the notes on display behind the table. Look yourself." His words contained a jeer that taunted Lin Ming for coming into a high-quality shop. The shopkeeper had done enough business that he developed an innate ability to recognize who would purchase items and who wouldn't. When some rich and powerful figure came to the store, he would greet them and assist them, but those with no money he would ignore. Not to mention Lin Ming would not only looked ordinary but had come in a few days ago trying to sell him some toilet paper. This kind of boy was impossible to be any sort of good character, so the storekeeper was impatient. Lin Ming went to where the flexible armor was and read the description. This soft armor was made with 10,000 6-foot-long day ruler hemp. It had also been mixed with several thousand strings of golden wood root silkworm silk and been made from combining over 20 advanced crafting techniques. The price was 392 gold taels. This sort of excellent flexible armor was treasure. It could withstand attacks up to the 4th layer of body transformation. But after the 4th layer then it would be easily broken, so Lin Ming did not need it. It was something that much better suited Lin Xiaodong. He continued to look until something caught his eye. It was a golden deer pill and soul-gathering pellet. Before now, Lin Ming had not taken any pills because the cost was simply too high. Pills and pellets were made from combining medicinal herbs and raw materials from vicious beasts and then refining them. It was many times better than simply using medicinal herbs or vicious beast materials. Moreover, because of the formulas, it was possible to achieve effects which the medicinal herbs or vicious beast materials could not achieve by themselves. Golden deer pills were very rare. They were made from a 100-year-old golden deer's deer embryo as the main ingredient and supplemented with a variety of herbs. Golden deer were rare and moreover mostly found in remote mountain forests. It was not easy for them to be difficult, and to take a golden deer's embryo was as difficult as it sounded. Because the golden deer pills were refined from the deer embryo, they contained a rich and fragrant vitality. In addition, they had not been contaminated by the Hutian phase of air outside the womb. Thus it was possible to remove the impurities of the body and promote an increase in soul force and physical cultivation. This kind of pill was a yellow rice-sized grain valued at 200 gold. The soul-gathering pellet also required precious raw materials to refine. Its main ingredient was 100-year-old blood fungus, and the main effect of the pellet was to increase the absorption of soul force and speed up a martial artist's cultivation. This kind of pellet was at 200 gold also. Even aristocratic families' juniors had to use their savings to buy it. Lin Ming stopped looking as he decided what he wanted to purchase. He turned to the storekeeper and said, "I'll take this golden wood root silkworm armor. Wrap it up for me. I'll also take 6 golden deer pills and 10 soul-gathering pills, as well as the materials on this list. Don't miss a single one." Lin Ming said this and pulled out a list which had a variety of materials written on it. They were all used for inscriptions. He had taken a look a moment ago and saw that they were all sold here. Chapter 26 Breakthrough. Chapter 26 Breakthrough. Having listened to Lin Ming's words and seeing this exceedingly long list, the storekeeper flushed red. Did this country bumpkin think that the 100 treasure hall was somewhere that he could just play around in? Such a large order would cost several thousand taels of gold at the bare minimum. It was as if this young little boy was buying bok choy at the market. Spending a few thousand gold taels, Not even the sons of those aristocratic families would be able to afford so much. He waved the list impatiently and placed it on the counter, then said, I'm going to give you two a warning. For anyone that intentionally causes trouble in the 100 treasure halls, there will be severe consequences. I'll warn your mom. Lin Xiaodong slapped his hand against the storekeeper's hand. The storekeeper had only ever done business and did not have the talent to practice martial arts, and with a loud pat from Lin Xiaodong, he pitifully screamed. You! The storekeeper could not believe this hooligan would dare to cause a scene in the 100 treasures hall. Look, you snobby little son of a bitch, us young masters have money. As Lin Xiaodong said this, he reached into Lin Ming's robes and took the golden banknotes near his chest. He slammed them on the counter with 100 jins of strength, and the counter shook. With gold notes in hand, Lin Xiaodong's confidence shot through the roof. This storekeeper was already a sore in his eyes. How could he miss this opportunity to teach the rude man a lesson? The storekeeper froze when he saw the golden banknotes. His eyes flashed as he fiercely calculated the total amount in that stack of bills. They were banknotes worth 1,000 gold taels each. With that, the total amount had to be at least several thousand taels. He immediately realized that the golden banknotes were the real deal. As long as he went to a bank that was part of the Chamber of Commerce, he could exchange them for gold taels. The storekeeper was thoroughly shocked. He sized up Lin Ming and also Lin Xiaodong. These two little guys were by no means the children of an aristocratic family. Just a few days ago that Lin Ming was just a poor boy that was door-to-door selling symbol papers. Where did he suddenly come into so many riches? Did he actually sell those symbol papers? It was impossible. An apprentice inscriptionist's inscriptions would be inconceivable to sell for that much money. Two upstart nouveau rich boys, he did not realize that they were suddenly high-class characters and had been acting arrogant in front of them. In the storekeeper's heart was only melancholy. But money was God, and this was a temple. He rubbed his hand, which had swelled like a grapefruit, and put on a smile. Taking the list, he quickly scanned it. On it were listed materials that weren't cheap. In addition to those items that Lin Ming had wanted, he quickly calculated that this business transaction would almost be 6,000 taels of gold. This was equal to the price of 2 rare treasures. And with the commission he could earn 120 gold taels for himself. This was not a small number. Although his heart was still a little resentful, it wasn't worth it with the amount of money on the line. So the storekeeper grovelled and bowed and said, My foolish self did not recognize such esteemed guests of honor had appeared. Please wait, I shall prepare everything immediately. The storekeeper's keeper body was bloated like a pig with too much gas, and yet he moved like the wind. Lin Ming wanted a variety of materials that were all in different sections of the store, but the storekeeper was quick on his feet and fast with his hands and soon gathered everything together. The storekeeper had a radiant smile as he said, Two esteemed guests, please examine the authenticity of the goods. The total is 5,800 gold taels. Seeing the stacks of goods, Lin Xiaodong asked Lin Ming, Is this everything, brother Lin? Lin Ming said, Yes, it looks like this is it. By now, Lin Xiaodong's mouth twitched and he slyly smiled and said, I'm sorry, this is embarrassing, but I would like to see a different storekeeper to pay. The storekeeper's happy face instantly stiffened. In such a high-class store like the 100 treasure halls, it was only natural that a storekeeper's worth was dependent on his ability to sell. Therefore, all the storekeepers here took commission on all items they sold themselves. Lin Xiaodong understood this, and decided to give the slimy man a hard time. Please move a bit faster, would like to finish this as soon as possible. The storekeeper realized that Lin Xiaodong was messing with him intentionally, and his heart ignited with fury. If a junior of an aristocratic house had decided to play a joke on him, then he would bear with it, but these two were only some newly minted hicks that came into some wealth. They didn't have the right yet to be so insufferably arrogant. How could he let himself be at their mercy? His voice was cold as he said, In this 100 treasure hall, I am the only one storekeeper. Who do you propose I find another? You little clown, don't try to lie to us. Hurry and go, otherwise I'll complain to your boss. Go ahead. The storekeeper sneered. Boss? The idiot thought that he could see the boss just because he wanted to. He was preparing a few more harsh words when his eyes suddenly caught on something. In the golden banknotes was a purple gold-colored card. It was the card that Mui had given to Lin Ming, the VIP card. Everyone who used one would automatically be given a 10% discount on all shops that were under the government's jurisdiction. It was the Marshal Quarters and Imperial Family's purple gold VIP card. The storekeeper's heart skipped a beat. This VIP card was given by the Chamber of Commerce to Royal Family and Marshal Quarters to please them. To date, there had been less than 100 sent out. The only ones that had the qualifications to own one of these was either a member of the Imperial Family or a top-tier figure within the Marshal Quarters. Any of these figures could squish him like a bug. He was finished. Everything was over. These two little punks absolutely had the background and qualifications to do as the wish. It might even be possible that they were the Emperor's little sons putting on some disguise and coming out of the Imperial place to play around. F***ck. His luck was such dog shit. The storekeeper despaired. Two young masters, this lowly one was wrong and foolish and deserves punishment. This lowly one will look for another storekeeper for you. Please have grace and mercy and do not keep in your heart my pathetic transgressions. The storekeeper began to slap himself, and although it wasn't heavy, the fat on his cheeks jiggled. Lin Xiaodong was dumbfounded. This guy, did he take some crazy pills? The storekeeper moved with fear and trepidation and found another storekeeper to close the deal. He kept apologizing and finally also called a carriage to bring them back. As they returned to Lin Ming's lodgings, Lin Xiaodong did not know that the reason for the storekeeper's actions was the purple gold VIP card. He thought that it was the gold that overawed the snobby storekeeper, so his mood at the moment was excellent. Haha, that was fun. Damn, remembering that storekeeper's scared shitless expression really makes me want to laugh. Brother Lin, if you weren't in a hurt I would have complained to that 100 Treasures Hall's boss and made that little snob pack up his bags and leave. Lin Ming had actually been watching clearly, and knew that when the storekeeper had looked at the purple gold VIP card, his expression had greatly changed. He could not restrain a sigh of emotion as he thought that the Marshal Quarters' power and influence that had accumulated over time was no less than that of the Imperial Family. He said, "Little people have their little ways of living." Flattery and rudeness was what they were forced to learn in order to live. There's no need to be so ruthless towards them. Xiaodong, this flexible armor and these 3 golden deer pills are for you. The golden deer pills were able to remove impurities in the body. The first one was the most effective, and afterwards the efficacy halves. Taking more than 3 would generally be a waste. As for the soul-gathering pellet, there was no limit to taking them, but it was only suitable for those that were diligent in practice. Lin Xiaodong naturally had no use for them. The 3 golden deer pills and flexible armor added to a value of nearly 1,000 taels of gold. To Lin Xiaodong this was a great sum of money, and he hesitated for a moment until he thought of Lin Ming's story. If it were true then 1,000 gold taels was only a drop in the bucket compared to what he would make in the future. Thinking of these he accepted the items and smiled with a laugh as he said, "Then I will shamelessly accept them. Brother Lin, later you will become my protective umbrella, haha." Lin Ming smiled and said, "We are brothers, there is no need for formalities between us." In addition, Li Ming took out the remaining 3,000 gold taels. "When the family messengers come next time to Sky Fortune City, help me get this to my parents and have them by the restaurant." Lin Ming's parents had invested more than half their lives into that restaurant, and naturally have a close attachment towards it. Lin Ming first thought of helping them by buying it. "Alright, let me handle this matter." As Lin Xiaodong left, Lin Ming returned to his room alone. He looked at the calendar and saw that the 7 profound Marshal House entrance exam was 50 days away. In these 50 days, he must be reborn. Regardless of the golden deer pill or the soul-gathering pellet, these medicines were not able to directly increase the cultivation of a martial artist. The former eliminated impurities of the body, and the latter made it easier to train with soul force. Combined together, they could increase the rate he could practice. As for directly increasing one's cultivation, these medicines could be bought, but they had implications in that they created more impurities in the soul force. Although cultivation would increase quickly, the foundation would not be steady, and one would have to spend a massive amount of time to consolidate the foundation in order for it to be stable. Therefore Lin Ming did not rush to buy this sort of medicine. At the moment, Lin Ming was among the treetops, and had finally begun to take the first golden deer pill. Although the golden deer pill was expensive, it was not really a rare medicine. Although Lin Ming knew how to increase the potency of medicine with inscription techniques, it wasn't necessary for the golden deer pill, so he ate them directly. Lin Ming had filled a large wooden barrel with water. He stripped himself and then jumped in. In his body, the medicine began to dissolve with him. He could feel a flow of heat circulating in his chest. Lin Ming began to meditate and revolve the true primal chaos formula. The soul force stirred in his body and the golden deer pull began to display their use. With the onset of the effects, Lin Ming felt a slight tingling sensation and his body began to purify. The body of a martial artist, ever since it comes from the womb, would constantly be exposed to the contaminated Hutian air of the world. This kind of air was contained in every breath, in the grains they ate, in the rivers and streams and lakes they drank from. It was inevitable that the impurities would accumulate in the body. The golden deer pills contained a hint of Xiantian air from the deer embryo, and thus they could purify the body. Lin Ming lay in the wooden barrel for the entire night. The surface of the water began to shimmer with greasy dark oil. This was Lin Ming's impurities. An aristocratic family's junior would begin this process as early as 12 years of age. They would practice martial arts after their body had been tempered and purified. Soaking in baths of rare medicines were commonplace for them, and they naturally had fewer impurities in their body, and it would be much easier to integrate the soul force. Even if they were a grade 3 talent like Lin Ming, he would find it difficult to keep pace with these juniors. At dawn, Lin Ming finally opened his eyes. The golden deer pill had been completely absorbed by him, and his body had been purified. Lin Ming again revolved the true chaos primal formula. It really was easier to circulate the soul force in his body. Lin Ming also found something else. It seemed the soul force had spread throughout his entire body. This was the starting stage of the second stage of body transformation. Lin Ming had finally reached the second stage of body transformation. Lin Ming exhaled slowly in relief. He had already long reached the peak of body transformation's first stage, and was only a small step away from reaching the second stage. Even without the golden deer pill, it would only have been a matter of days before he reached the second stage. Lin Ming exhaled slowly in relief. He had already long reached the peak of body transformation's first stage, and was only a small step away from reaching the second stage. Even without the golden deer pill, it would only have been a matter of days before he reached the second stage. Body transformation's first stage was strength training, where true essence mainly concentrated in the muscles, and with the advent of the second stage of body transformation, it began to proliferate and spread throughout the body. Not only would one's strength increase, but the body's fortitude would also rise a notch. Although one wouldn't become invincible, it wouldn't be difficult to say that the sword that would have easily pierced you before would only give you a slight injury. The combat effectiveness would also increase by a small margin. However, Zhu Yang had only been at the peak of body transformation's third stage half a year ago. He had only reached the second stage of body transformation, and even though it was with the power of the potent primal chaos formula, compared to Zhu Yang, there was just too large a disparity between them. And this was discounting the half year that Zhu Yang had been training. He was a 4th grade talent, so his practice speed was similarly quick. Although he had not slept yet, Lin Ming had just broken through and was feeling refreshed and not tired or drowsy at all. He immediately ran outside and headed towards the Ju Mountains. The Great Clarity Pavilion was a few miles distance from the glade that Lin Ming usually practiced at. Even running there at breakneck speed, it would have taken the time to burn 2 sticks of incense to cross the distance. But now that he had broken through to the second stage of body transformation, the time it took was less than half. Lin Ming was exceptionally happy at this moment. After he reached his usual spot, Lin Ming tossed his knapsack on the ground. In it was the materials for medicines and also bandages. The medicine was not the cheap stuff, they were all rare and precious medicines. Even the bandages had been steeped in black bone grass juice, which provided an extra healing effect. With this kind of luxurious medicine, he did not have to worry about internal injuries. Lin Ming was able to enjoy practicing with all his heart. Lin Ming ate a soul-gathering pellet to increase the rate he absorbed true essence. Lin Ming began to practice both the true primal chaos formula and the chaotic virtues combat meridians. In Sky Spill continent, within those that practiced martial arts, having the strength of a 1,000 jinns was considered a small accomplishment. Then the martial artist would go through altering muscle, bone forging, and pulse condensation. By the time the body transformation was completed, a martial artist's strength could amount to 8,000 jinns, in which a small percent who were born with divine heavenly strength, their strength could amount to 10,000 jinns. This was the limit of strength. Even if one were a Hutian master, their strength would not grow, they could only raise their true essence. Then after reaching Xiantian, including the levels above, they would understand the true essence, and cultivate the soul. This was considered the correct path of martial arts. But recorded in the chaotic virtues combat meridians, having a strength of 1,000 jinns was only a beginning. Those who just entered should reach 10,000 jinns, and those with a small bit of accomplishments could reach 100,000 jinns of strength. As for the strength of the highest cultivators, there was no way to estimate. If they opened the 8 gates of hidden celestial stems after the 9 stars palace, the body could borrow power from the heavens and earth. Their feet would crack mountains, their fists would break the sky. That sort of strength was not even describable with a strength of 100,000 jinns, it could only be at least 1,000,000 jinns or above. When Lin Ming saw this in the memories, he could hardly believe it. If it had been 2 or 3 times stronger than normal, then perhaps he might have. After all, this was the legacy of countless millennia from the realm of the gods. But this difference of several thousand times was just too unbelievable. He was able to recall in his memories that in the sects, the custodians that swept the entrance and the little children that ran amok would have the strength of several tens of thousands of jinns of strength. As for the true disciples, their strength would be above 100,000 jinns. The memories were so detailed that Lin Ming was forced to believe them. Even if Marshal Qin Xiao was compared, he would not even be able to compare with a simple floor sweeper. However, this sort of strength was very remote to Lin Ming, because if it was said that the step from tempering marrow to pulse condensation was difficult, then the step from tempering marrow to opening the 8 gates of hidden celestial stems and the 9 stars palace was even more so. Let alone Lin Ming, from his memories he knew that these sects had many disciples that were stuck at this stage. Compared to the Sky Fortune Kingdom, it could be said to be more difficult than ascending from Hutian to Xiantian. Lin Ming thought all this and took a deep breath. It was premature to consider these possibilities. What he had to do now was practice the basic abilities of the chaotic virtues combat meridians, and at least achieve strength training stage of flowing like silk. Flowing like silk, where one could punch a tree and leave the bark untouched while turning the inside to pulp. However, the elder's memories were a bit blurry here. Lin Ming had not yet reached this stage and could only attempt to decipher the secrets behind it himself. In the southeast of Sky Fortune City, there was a squad of armed guards that stood on alert. A youth dressed in the finest silk clothing and with a fine long sword strapped to his waist stood in the corridor and looked around as if he were waiting for someone. As soon as an incense of time passed, another young man wearing a mail armor and helmet walked down the end of the hallway. He seemed to be a bit over 20 years old. Although his stature was not princely, his step was calm and his breath relaxed, he appeared to be a master. The young silk-robed youth saw this man and smiled joyfully. He immediately welcomed him. "Elder brother, you've returned. Father will surely be happy. He was very satisfied with your successes on the frontier these past 3 years." The silk-robed youth was all smiles. He was the man who had lost 1,000 taels of gold to Lin Ming and had his name read in reverse, Wang Yigao. Wang Yigao had been pitiful. Although he had tried to suppress the news and prevent it from spreading, his father had still found out. Regarding this matter, General Wang was furious. He was not angry that Wang Yigao made a gambling bet, but that he has lost. Not only did he lose, but he had lost to a boy at the first stage of body transformation and had his name called in reverse. He was simply a great shame to the family name. Wang Juju had issued an order that he be confined for 2 months, and had just exited. The 2-month confinement had been rough on Wang Yigao's life. He could not eat meat, he could not go to the brothel, he could not lead his little minions to terrorize others, and had to read military classics and complete daily schoolwork. Wang Yigao hated these things with a passion, and all this was due to Lin Ming. He simply could not swallow this aggrievement. But Wang Yigao didn't know of a way to deal with Lin Ming. He did not have any real power with the army, nor could he defeat Lin Ming himself. As for those scoundrels that were his friends, not one of them was Lin Ming's match. Moreover, his father had cut off his purse, so he did not have the means to hire someone. Simply put, there was nothing he could do to Lin Ming. Until today, that is. His elder brother came back and Wang Yigao almost cried. He felt that his opportunity had finally come, therefore he waited a long time for his brother to arrive so he could complain. Wang Yiming looked at the pitiful Wang Yigao. The two were both sons of the main family, and had the same father and mother. Naturally, he understood his little brother. He said, "You waited for me to discuss the matter of that bet you lost." General Wang had admonished and punished Wang Yigao about this, so naturally he was very clear about it. Wang Yigao looked up. Elder brother is perceptive of the smallest details. Truly fierce, you do now know, that boy is just too arrogant. First he hit my servant and then cheated in the bet. Not only that, but he insulted our army family. Wang Yiming listened and knew that his little brother was shameless and concocting irrational explanations. He impatiently said, "Cut the crap. You think I don't know what you want? You want me to take revenge for you? Elder brother is truly an unparalleled hero. Taking care of that guy is just like lifting a small finger." Wang Yiming said, "I am a dignified military commander, and you want me to help you get rid of some kid at the first stage of body transformation. Is this a joke that I should laugh at?" Wang Yigao smiled a little. "Yes, it is a bit overkill. One must not use the oxen knife to kill a chicken. Elder brother, do you not have 4 strong armed guards? Letting them go is also the same. My father is the captain of Sky Fortune City's armed forces. The throne is about to be passed down, now is a sensitive time. You want me to use the armed forces guards to make an arrest in the national capital? You actually want to commit this sort of absurd matter? What do you think the results will be? I think your 2 months of confinement were not long enough." Wang Yiming yelled these words and paid no more attention to Wang Yigao. With a turn of his heel, he departed. Wang Yigao was left standing there to stew in his resentment. He had not thought that even his own brother would so loudly upbraid him. He clenched his fist and teeth until he was shaking. F***ck. Never have I suffered such an injustice in Sky Fortune City. Lin Ming, if I do not cripple you, then my last name is not Wang. Sunrise, sunset, 50 cloudy days quietly passed. In the Ju Mountains, a young boy was shadowboxing in a glade. The mountain wind howled, but the sounds coming from the young boy's fists overshadowed the mountains. Bang! As soon as the youth punched the wooden pillar in front of him, a peng rang into the air. Even though the wooden pillar had been infused with special medicines to make it more durable, it broke in half with that single fist. As the punch finished, not even waiting for the dust to land, he whipped his leg downwards and split the wooden pillar in half. Although I still haven't been able to figure out flow like silk, I still have reached some small success with the first stage of the true primal chaos formula, and my body transformation's second stage has consolidated very well. My strength should be at least 2,600 jins. This youth was Lin Ming. In these 50 days, Lin Ming had been constantly training in the mountains. He had unlimited precious medicines and had taken 20 of the soul-gathering pellets. Because of this massive gold consumption, Lin Ming had also sold an inscription symbol to pay for them. However, even with so many medicines, Lin Ming had still not been able to break through to the third stage of body transformation, viscera training. Chaotic Virtues Combat Meridians focused on building a solid foundation. It wasn't something where one hastily progressed. It's been 50 days. Tomorrow will be the 7 Profound Martial Houses entrance exam. I should have no problem in passing. Lin Ming said as he picked up his clothes from a large rock. He also took a quick wash in the river. Under the shining sun, Lin Ming's muscles were symmetrically solid. The light made his skin gleam with luster, and it was filled with an aesthetic strength. He was like a supple cheetah at the peak of his power. Just from looking at this back, it was hard to believe that this was the physique and spirit of a young 15-year-old boy. After washing himself, Lin Ming put on his clothes and left the mountain. He launched himself quickly like a falcon chasing after a rabbit, his speed like a flash of light, and in a few breaths he vanished into the boundless forest. Chapter 28 Conspiracy. Chapter 28 Conspiracy. Every year, at the beginning of fall and the beginning of spring, the 7 Profound Martial House would have their examination of potential recruits. This was also the most important day of those youths of Sky Fortune Kingdom who cultivated in martial arts. To them, the 7 Profound Martial House was the final goal. If they reached it, they could become a dragon that could touch the skies with a single bound. By entering the 7 Profound Martial House, resources were important, but it was the inheritance and legacy skill manuals that everyone obsessed over. The inherited skill manuals had accumulated over many years, and in them was the culmination of experiences that all the preceding martial arts seniors had learned. Without these experiences, then if one were to try and learn martial arts themselves, it truly would be a moron talking nonsense on the streets. But the available skill manuals were always very popular and dependable, but the true highest quality genuine goods could only be found and inherited in the sects. This method of inheritance was strictly controlled by the sects. If they were to discover even a hint that a disciple had revealed the secrets of their skill manuals, then a light punishment would be the destruction of their cultivation. A heavy punishment would result in instant execution. It was very difficult to inherit skill manuals. They were inconceivably hard to transcribe and duplicate. The martial arts pathway profound and esoteric. The flow of essence and the feelings that followed, the root of cultivation. These true essence-gathering skills were unable to be described with words, therefore the true rare skill manuals were not recorded in books and were unable to be transcribed paper. Skill manuals were usually recorded on jade slips. Each small jade slip contained a wealth of mysterious and arcane information. Even a manual could only contain a general idea of what can be explained inside. If one wanted to engrave the mysteries onto a jade slip, one must have complete understanding of the skill manual. This was truly difficult to achieve even then, and moreover had to spend a great deal of time and energy. The skill manual could also not be understood by everyone. Even if they attained the jade slip, they might not be able to decipher the mysteries. It was just like a bank that released golden banknotes. Although it was money, those who did not understand it could only use it as tissue. Therefore the jade slips that contained these ancient manuals were very few, and could not be obtained no matter the price on the market. This was also the reason that the 7 Profound Martial House were able to cause young martial artists to go crazy with the desire to enter. However, these selecting conditions were harsh, and every year there were inevitably a massive number of aspiring martial artists that failed to be elected. Lin Ming himself had the highest quality body transformation skill manual, the Chaotic Virtues Combat Meridians, so he naturally did not have any interest in the 7 Profound Martial House's inheritance or legacies. The reason he desired to enter was not because of Lan Yunyu. After he had decided to devote his life to pursue the pinnacle of martial arts, the matter of Lan Yunyu could no longer cause turbulence in his heart. Lin Ming desired to enter the 7 Profound Martial House because he needed the practice resources. The resources were not medicines or herbs, but special areas where one could exercise. These special areas were either created through array arrangements, or were special environmental areas which were formed by Xiantian practitioners. They were able to allow humans to cultivate with twice the result and half the effort. But most important were martial skills. Martial skills were critical to a martial artist as they were directly linked to their level of combat strength. Lin Ming also knew a few martial skills that he had absorbed from the Elder's memory fragment. In those memories were 3 or 4 martial skills he had seen, but they were incomplete. The truth was that even though those martial skills were incomplete, they were in fact the top-tier martial skills even in the realm of the gods. Needless to say, even those incomplete versions were far superior to those of Sky Fortune Kingdom. But it was a pity that those 3 to 4 martial skills that Lin Ming knew were impossible to practice from the start. To even dare begin practicing them, he would need to be at least at the Xiantian stage. In those memories, the weakest of the martial skills were able to destroy mountains with a single stroke, let alone killing people. It would probably be easy to destroy the entire Sky Fortune capital city. This sort of martial skill was almost an alien language to Lin Ming. Therefore Lin Ming needed to take this entrance exam and enter the 7 profound martial house. He also had to attain a good result, as with every year, the candidates with the top results were always richly rewarded. Perhaps it was precious medicines or rare treasures. These medicines were often produced from within the sect, the 7 profound valleys. In Sky Fortune City, not even the richest man could buy these. Even the juniors of aristocratic families would drool with envy at these coveted rewards. Lin Ming was also tempted. Before, his strength was low, so he had low expectations, but at the present, the situation had turned, so he had high aspirations for them. At the first day of autumn, the square of the 7 profound martial house already had a sea of people crowded inside. Because there were too many candidates that would come to apply, the examination would always begin at sunrise and continue all day. Lin Ming and Lin Xiaodong had not entered the square yet, but were on the major road outside. Although there were relatively fewer people here, Lin Ming's ears still buzzed with the sound of discussion. They say that this time there are several top-tier talents that have come, included that number 1 talent Wang Yangfeng. 15 years old, grade 4 talent, and his cultivation has already stepped into the 3rd stage of body transformation. Truly a formidable man. Isn't it weird? Why would he not enter the 7 profound martial house earlier? Why didn't he come during the spring entrance exam? I guess his goal is the heavenly abode. As soon he enters the 7 profound martial house, he wants to enter the heavenly abode. How aggressive of him. The heavenly abode is absolutely impossible. The only one these past years to enter the heavenly abode was Qin Xingxuan. The lowest cultivation for the heavenly abode is the peak of the 3rd stage of body transformation, and usually inside are those at the 4th stage of body transformation. Not even this Wang Yangfeng has the qualifications to enter. I think the reason he waited such a long time is to take the entrance exam reward for 1st place. Heavenly abode. Lin Ming muttered in his heart. Half a year ago Zhu Yang had relied on his peak of body transformation's 3rd stage to enter the heavenly abode. Without a doubt, Zhu Yang's strength was truly outstanding even among those of equal cultivation. He could absolutely not be compared to a sack of potatoes like Wang Yigao. As Lin Ming was lost in thought, he suddenly felt the gaze of someone fall on his body. Was someone observing him? In the large crowd, there were many that were looking at him, but the average person could simply not discover these people and their intentions. But Lin Ming had practiced the true primal chaos formula, so his perception was acutely keen, and even with so many people, he could feel a cold eye staring his way. He pretended to be nonchalant as he turned his head. There was a blue carriage at the origin of that sight, but when Lin Ming turned to look, the carriage's curtain dropped back down. Lin Ming sighed in his heart. He had not even begun the entrance exam and there were probably people plotting against him. At this moment in the blue carriage, a youth in silk clothing and another gloomy-looking youth were sitting inside. It was Wang Yigao and Zhu Yang. He won't discover us. Wang Yigao had been frightened the last time by Lin Ming. Even though he claimed publicly that he wanted revenge, he was afraid of Lin Ming. Those 3 moves that caused him to suffer defeat had left a dark mark on his heart and tanked his self-confidence. Zhu Yang frostily said, "Stop being so scared and suspicious, there are many people here, it's not as if he has eyes on the back of his head." This guy, he even managed to break through to the 2nd stage of body transformation. The gap between the 1st stage and 2nd stage of body transformation was not small. A 15-year-old that could achieve this was not simple, especially when considering Lin Ming and his poor family background and mere 3rd-grade talent. I think the guy probably practiced like a freak, otherwise there is no way. Even I only hit the 2nd stage when I was 16 years old. He probably overtaxed his body and received some permanent internal injuries. This kind of idiot, in a few years he won't be any different from a vegetable. Wang Yigao viciously cursed. Zhu Yang despised this sycophant in his heart. Even with so many rare medicines supporting him, he only hit the 2nd stage when he was 16 years old. Not only that, but his combat level a completely weak mess. If his father wasn't Sky Fortune City's army major, then Zhu Yang would be disinclined to even bother paying attention to him. Zhu Yang said, according to common sense it would be impossible for him to achieve this stage. Overtaxing the body and receiving internal injuries, then he would sooner or later be disabled, but if he had the support of 1,000 gold taels, then it would be less certain. Hearing Zhu Yang say this, Wang Yigao's face instantly turned bright red. He thought that Zhu Yang did not know of the gambling matter, but it seemed he already did. Was there anyone who didn't? Damn it all. He really disgraced his grandmother. Zhu Yang paid no attention to Wang Yigao. His expression was gloomy. Generally speaking, a 16-year-old boy, if his cultivation had surpassed the third stage of body transformation, then he would enter the 7 profound martial house. Many disciples in respected families entered like this. To them, the massive amount of rare and precious medicinal herbs supported them, so this was not too difficult. Regarding these matters, the 7 profound martial house did not mind the family helping. After all, this too was part of a martial artist's strength. Family background was equivalent to talent. Whether by virtue of their own talent or virtue of medicines helping them, they were a master martial artist and could expand the strength and influence of the 7 profound martial house. Those who relied on medicines had hopes of entering the 7 profound martial house, much less Lin Ming, whose combat ability surpassed someone from the same rank, so his chances of entering were higher. Zhu Yang did not want Lin Ming to enter the 7 profound martial house. He didn't fear Lin Ming surpassing him, after all he was only a third-grade talent. Zhu Yang had absolute confidence in himself. Even if Zhu Yang jumped a level or defeated Wang Yigao, it was no big deal. After all, Wang Yigao was only at the 2nd stage of body transformation and his combat level was piss poor. He was confident that he would always keep Lin Ming under his boot. But if Lin Ming were to enter, it would definitely arouse some mighty waves in Lan Yunyue's heart. Lan Yunyue had not forgotten her former friendship with Lin Ming. Would it be the same if he entered the 7 profound martial house? Zhu Yang liked Lan Yunyue. Half of this was because of her temperament and lovely appearance, and the other half was because of his possessiveness of all good things. He was absolutely unable to tolerate any other man being in Lan Yunyue's heart. Because of his family, Zhu Yang had a small connection to the royal family, so he had some connections to the 7 profound martial house. However, the martial house's inspections were a very public matter, so it was impossible to prevent Lin Ming from entering. So the only plan that he had left was to not let him participate in the entrance exam. Chapter 29 Overturn the Cavalry. Chapter 29 Overturn the Cavalry. Zhu Yang pondered as he traced the ring on his finger. He said, "Brother Wang, Sky Fortune City is your domain. What kind of connections do you not have? Naturally you associate with superior individuals that are at the 4th stage or even the peak of the 4th stage." Zhu Yang suspected that Lin Ming had a solid foundation and was stronger than he appeared. It would be impossible to have an expert at the peak of the 3rd stage deal with him in an easy manner. It would be best to jump straight up and look for someone at the 4th stage to send him off. Wang Yigao said, "I know many masters at the 4th stage, but they are the guards of my father or brother. Because of the previous matter, my father already issued a decree. Now no one listens to me. People at the 4th stage of body transformation were usually not some fresh spring flower. This sort of person tended to be over 30 years old and often occupied a high position, or were some powerful person's personal guard. By Wang Yigao's ability, asking them to deal with a 15-year-old boy was just not possible." Zhu Yang thought of this and said to Wang Yigao, "This 7 profound martial house inspection, isn't the one policing it Zhao Mingshan? He seems to have received a promotion from your father recently." Wang Yigao was surprised, but he nodded and said, "There is such a matter. Brother Zhao is usually very nice to me." Zhu Yang had heard from others that Zhao Mingshan was the captain of Sky Fortune City's police force. The city police force and the city protection army were 2 parts of a system. The city police force was responsible for public security, such as catching thieves and maintaining law and order, and the city protection army was responsible for maintaining the emperor's ruling power and suppressing rebellion. "Ah, I know. I have an idea to make a cripple of you, Lin Ming. Zhu Yang peeked through the carriage curtain and stared at Lin Ming like a poisonous serpent as his face began to darken. 7 profound martial houses inspections were divided into 3 parts: the strength trial, the dream trial, and the exquisite pagoda. This morning was the first test, the strength trial. Strength training was the first stage of body transformation. It was also the foundation of martial arts. If strength training was not solid, then the later stages of flesh training, viscera training, altering muscle and bone forging would all become useless. Therefore, strength was very important to martial artists. The measurement for strength was also relatively simple. As long as the trial was done well, then a large number of applicants could be eliminated. Because of this, for the last several years the 7 Profound Martial House had placed the inspection of strength as the first test. The test was a special stone structure the height of a man. There was a beam of light at the top that was formed by true essence. As long as someone punched the stone, the beam would transmit a light that signaled the person's strength. An inch-high beam of light would be a bit less than 100 jin. If one managed a beam of light a foot high, then it would be 1000 jin and one would qualify. Anything below that was instant elimination. But body transformation's peak of the first stage of strength training was usually around 9 stones. It was enough to break iron wood, but generally martial artists at the first stage had around 900 jins of strength, so they had a difficult time passing the first trial. Lin Ming had already surpassed 1000 jins of strength early on in the first stage. Presently he was a bit stronger than 2600 jins. This was because of the overwhelming prestige of the chaotic virtues combat meridians. Naturally in this test, strength was his forte, and he would be able to fight for first place. In the square, the trial had not yet started. Lin Ming was meditating on a stone platform off the road and controlling his breath. Suddenly a rapid burst of sound came as a loud voice shouted, "Out of the way! Out of the way!" Lin Ming opened his eyes and was surprised to see a 20-year-old man bolting down the road on a horse. He wore thick shiny armor and his hand was a 2-meter-long lance as thick as a child's arm. He dispersed the crowd by waving the lance around with one hand while wielding a horsewhip with the other. Dad-ada. The sound of the hoofbeat was crisp in the air, and the people in the crowded major road scattered. Lin Ming frowned. Today was the date of 7 Profound Martial Houses entrance exam. Sky Fortune City would send the city police force here to maintain order. How did they allow someone to wildly buck into the crowd? Lin Ming soon noted that although this person was aggressive in his manner as he waved his lance around, he actually did not bump into anyone. It looked as though this man's martial arts was decent, and he was also skilled at horse riding. Lin Ming originally sat on the roadside and did not get up. But at this moment he saw that the men sinisterly smile, and flicked his reins and turned and galloped towards Lin Ming. Lin Ming's expression sank. He realized that this man was coming for him. The horse was coming faster and faster towards him. Not only was the man wearing armor, but the thick and long lance in his hand was at least 100 jins. In addition to the speed of the horse's sprint, that lance would be able to pierce through a wall. When he was less than 10 meters away, the lance in the man's hand began to glow with a faint yellow light. Martial skill. They really think much of me, to actually use a martial skill. Lin Ming thought as his eyes turned ice cold. He slightly opened his right and as the true primal chaos formula quickly revolved in him. Lin Ming's perception instantly reached the maximum limit. In his eyes, the lance speed had slowed down, and the noisy hoofbeats disappeared. When the man was within 3 meters, Lin Ming sprung from a sitting position, and he unexpectedly moved towards the man. Lin Ming had not attempted to dodge, but stretched out both hands and grasped the lance. 100 jin lance, a horse's barreling force, it could even break down a tree. And this boy actually used his hands to grab it. With the lance in hand, Lin Ming circulated true essence throughout his hands and feet. His right foot took one step back and braced against the stone platform, and with both hands pulling, more than 2,600 jins of strength instantly erupted. Up! Lin Ming called out, and the arms holding the lance suddenly rose up. The man only felt a brief sensation of strength as he was directly lifted from his lance and thrown off like a rag doll. The man felt dizzy, and there was a whistling sound in his eyes as his vision blurred from twirling in the air. The next moment he impacted the ground directly from behind with a malicious pain. His organs seemed to have misplaced themselves as he crashed into a tree and spit up a mouthful of blood. Lin Ming tossed aside the 100 Jin lance in his hand and sat back down. This man only had the strength of the second stage of body transformation. Although he also had the support from the horse, but compared with the chaotic virtues combat meridians that Lin Ming practiced, it was far from enough. The crowd that had been watching was simply speechless. This man in armor had sprinted at him with full speed but was still lifted up and tossed aside by Lin Ming. This youth was simply a vicious monster in human form. Zhu Yang had been watching this scene from afar on his carriage. His face became increasingly gloomy. Wang Yigao, this useless rice bucket. Even that person he knew was nothing more than a walking potato. He also had the strength of the horse supporting him, yet he was the own that was thrown away. However, he had also expected this result. He just didn't think that Lin Ming's counterattack would have been so unexpectedly fierce. Just then, a crowd of noisy footsteps could be heard approaching. What the hell is going on? Someone dares to attack others in public. As soon as Lin Ming looked up, it was actually Wang Yigao that had brought a crowd to the scene. He sneered in his heart. Obviously, this man had planned well for this. Wang Yigao looked at the man who had been flung away by Lin Ming and he felt his heart jump. This strength was truly terrifying. But his mind calmed as he remembered the crowd of people he brought to support him. Wang Yigao was emboldened. He clenched his teeth and looked at Lin Ming ferociously. Lin Ming, you bastard. Again and again you fight my men. I already wasn't going to quibble over these small details with you, but this time you have gone too far. Go. Bring him to me. Take him on. Kill him and I will take responsibility. Wang Yigao heroically waved his arm. But unexpectedly, even after he gave the code word, no one moved. Kill him and you will be responsible. What a shitty joke. If he kills us, will you also be responsible? The majority of the crowd was only at the first stage of body transformation and a few of them were at the second stage. However, they could be considered weaker than someone at the same stage. They had all seen the horrifying image of Lin Ming throwing off the man on a horse and it had been etched into their minds. Wasn't trying to bring him down, just courting death. Lin Ming smiled and said, "How, after 3 months, have you group of lapdog minions not improved?" Chapter 30 Beating the General's Son. Chapter 30 Beating the General's Son. As soon as Lin Ming mentioned 3 months, Wang Yigao lit on fire. This was the greatest humiliation that he had ever experienced in his life. What are you waiting for? Go. Do you want me to deal with you later? In this group of minions that followed Wang Yigao, there were those who bullied men and harassed women. Wang Yigao was the one who acted as their high umbrella. If Wang Yigao decided to kick them to the curb, not only would they not be protected, but there would be others who would take revenge and ferret out all of their criminal records. They would have no place left in Sky Fortune City. Thinking of this, the group of people braced themselves and decided to bite the bullet. They did not dare to attack him and instead just rushed up to take a blow. Lin Ming's eyes were cold. He used his right foot and picked up the lance. Firmly grasping it with his hand, he waved it towards the group of rushing minions. Each time he swept it towards them, it was as if he were sweeping chickens. 5 to 6 people flew into the air with each wave. Moans of sorrow and pain began to linger in the air. These weaklings were truly pathetic. As soon as they hit the ground, they began groaning. Seeing this, Lin Ming did not have the words to say anything. He just lightly swept them, not even using a quarter of his strength. It shouldn't have hurt this much. Although these small idiots were all just sacks of rice and were acting, when Lin Ming mowed down 7 or 8 people each time, it shocked bystanders, and they began to crowd around him. In a flash, the only one left was Wang Yigao, who had begun panicking and sliding backwards. Seeing Lin Ming walk towards him, his outwards appearance was fierce, but he was close to fainting. He said, "Lin Ming, what do you want? I warn you not to act too rashly or else your death will be very ugly." Lin Ming looked at him as if he were some kind of bug and coldly said, "Even rotten leaves have clear veins. As someone who practices martial arts, how could you lose your backbone like a coward? You bother me over and over. I've already put up with you twice. If I put up with you again, then for what reasons did I practice martial arts? As Lin Ming said this, he instantly arrived in front of Wang Yigao. Wang Yigao's goose hairs rose and almost pissed his pants. He had one thought on his mind. This Lin Ming, was he crazy? He dares to hit me. You dare. My father is. Wang Yigao screamed pitifully as Lin Ming punched his stomach. Lin Ming's fist contained a hidden energy. Although he hadn't achieved flow like silk, but he drew one step to achieve a hard and gentle movement. The fist's energy penetrated into Wang Yigao's organs and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Lin Ming used his other hand, aimed it, and slapped Wang Yigao's right cheek with a pa sound. Wang Yigao spun like a spinning top and fell with plop on the ground, seeing stars. One side of his lip was split open by Lin Ming's palm and a tooth had fallen out. You, Wang Yigao covered his mouth. He looked at his bloody hands and his eyes turned red with anger. He had grown up in the general's office since childhood and no one had ever dared to hit him. He stretched out his blood-stained trembling finger at Lin Ming. I will kill you. Kill me. Perhaps you won't have this opportunity. Lin Ming stepped forwards, his hand holding the lance. A murderous intent began to flow from him. Feeling this killing intent and seeing that his neck was less than half a foot from the lance, Wang Yigao's high confidence and anger completely shattered. He tumbled onto the floor and began crawling away as fast as he could while screaming, "Murder!" Lin Ming knew that in the broad daylight he could not kill the son of the general. Although that punch was filled with a concealed energy, it was a very slow non-fatal attack and only let Wang Yigao feel pain. As for his split lip, although it would hurt, it could be cured with some medicines. But on the main road, more hoofbeats began to resound. Lin Ming looked and saw that a 30-year-old man had arrived. He had a mustache and wore the clothes of a captain, with a sword hung on his waist. He rode here swiftly, and behind him were several additional officers. Seeing these officers, it was as if Wang Yigao had seen the light. He shouted loudly, "Save me, he wants to kill me." Then he rushed towards them. Lin Ming saw these officers and he frowned. He suddenly understood the purpose of Wang Yigao's actions. His goal had been to stir up some trouble. The truth was, he had not expected the man on the horse or even his minions could do anything to hurt him, but he had wanted to create some trouble so that the government that maintained the 7 profound Marshall House entrance examination would come and arrest him themselves. Once he was arrested, he would miss the entrance exam. He might even be sentenced and jailed. "What's going on here?" the captain Zhao Mingshan said. He was 35 years old and was at the 4th stage of body transformation and also held the post of the captain of the Sky Fortune City Police Force. Zhao Mingshan asked those that were crawling on the ground like pitiful bugs. Those that were wounded began to crawl towards him as if they were re-energized. This was something that Lin Ming had already guessed earlier. They began to point at Lin Ming all at once. "He beat us up. He was plotting to kill our young master. Your Honor, please look at our body's injuries. That guy was fighting with a lance. I luckily had quick reflexes and only received a bone fracture." A man lifted up his shirt. A big blue line on the chest was visible. Right now Lin Ming was also holding the lance. It could be said that the evidence was conclusive. "Big brother Zhao, you have to call the shots for me." As soon as Wang Yigao opened his mouth, blood began to froth out. This fellow was just too pitiful. He totally did not have a dignified appearance. Zhao Mingshan quickly handed over medicine to Wang Yigao. As the captain, Zhao Mingshan always kept medicine with him. Naturally, it was not anything that was of low value. Even as he was howling and sobbing, Wang Yigao wiped the medicine on his mouth. The medicine was effective and Wang Yigao's pain was alleviated just a little. "Big brother Zhao, you must get justice for me." Wang Yigao looked at Lin Ming with hatred. He did not think that Lin Ming would hit him. He decided that he would kill him. He would just need to get him in a jail cell and then he would find some way to deal with him. Kill him, cripple him, there would be no way to escape. No, killing him was too easy. It was best to let him wallow in suffering. This kind of matter was not something that Wang Yigao's father cared about. He had lost the bet, and lost to a young boy at the first stage, and had only gotten his name reversed. Wang Junzhu was of course furious about this. And this bullying that also crippled several civilians, as long as he didn't cause his family to lose face, then Wang Junzhu would simply not pay attention. Thinking that he might possibly react to this matter was not necessary. Thinking of this, Wang Yigao felt his heart finally be relieved. Although he had been hit, the pain was temporary. What was most important was that he released the anger in his chest. It was as Brother Zhu had planned. As long as they could write the truth of the incident, then they could use the hand of authority to oppress others. Zhao Mingshan was not a fool. He had been in the police force for many years. He had been made captain because he was also smart and quick on his feet. He only looked at the scene and accurately guessed the majority of the situation. This young boy had offended the general's house. Although he might have only given him a hard time, this young boy had injured someone from the general's house to this degree, he estimated his life was over. As a captain, he had to be cognizant of the influence of Sky Fortune City's major players. Zhao Mingshan's position in the government wasn't high, he absolutely could not stir up these powers, so like this, Zhao Mingshan had learned to survive in the cracks. With a matter like this in his hands, who was wrong and who was right, he did not look at the facts but at their backgrounds. Not only did Wang Yigao's father, a general of the armed forces, promote him, but even if he did not, then he would still have to look at General Wang's big name. Wang Yigao may not amount to anything in the main house, and he may have been disciplined if he was inside, but he was outside now, and so there were the concerns of face. If Zhao Mingshan gave the right order, then it would suggest that he was not one of General Wang's men. In his heart he understood these things, so he was resolute in his decision. He waved his hand and an officer moved out and began to inspect the injuries of the men on the floor. He then inspected Lin Ming's lance, contrasted them with the scars, and said, "Yes, these wounds are from the lance." Zhao Mingshan nodded and said to Lin Ming, "Name?" Lin Ming already guessed what Zhao Mingshao had prepared to do. He defiantly stared at Zhao Mingshan and frankly replied, "Lin Ming." Looking in Lin Ming's eyes, Zhao Mingshan felt a faint feeling of contempt that made him uncomfortable. He was also not feeling well as he said, "The evidence is conclusive, what do you have to say for yourself?" "The evidence is conclusive?" Lin Ming sneered, "Have you tried asking the bystanders? You only listened to the statements of Wang Yigao's party." Zhao Mingshan frowned, and thought that this fellow was not clear in the head. As soon as he appeared he had guessed that events would develop along this path, but now it looked as if this boy's death was looming over him and he was still joking. This boy, why did he have to hit Wang Yigao? Did he not know that his father was the leader of Sky Fortune City's armed guard forces? Although General Wang did not tolerate the idiocy of his son, and would even punish him frequently, this did not represent that he would allow others to hit his son, as that was equal to slapping him on the face. This boy Lin Ming couldn't also be anyone with a background. Looking at his clothes only confirmed that. This must have been some sort of personal matter. Zhao Mingshan sighed and said, "I will certainly question the bystanders, but first I ask that you return with me to the office to record an oral confession. I will have someone stay here to record statements. You will be kept there until the examination is over. As long as people were not stupid, they would not fight with the government and speak out of turn. If someone decided to have a big mouth, then they wouldn't have a pleasant result. Let's go." As soon as Zhao Mingshan waved his hand, two officers walked up, twining rope around their hands. Wang Yigao revealed a fiendish grin on his face. "Fight with me? Haha, let's see how you die now." As Lin Ming saw the two officers approach with rope in hand, Lin Ming shook his sleeves and coldly said, "You want to tie me up, but once you do, there won't be a good outcome for you." Chapter 31 Regretting Capture. Chapter 31 Regretting Capture. As Lin Ming saw the two officers approach with rope in hand, Lin Ming shook his sleeves and coldly said, "You want to tie me up, but once you do, there won't be a good outcome for you. You want to get out of this situation? Don't even think about it. Once you're in my hands you'll never escape, haha." Wang Yigao happily laughed to himself a few hundred times as the success of the situation got to his head. Even though he was the one that was injured, his smile was unsightly, and moreover these would clearly contain the suggestion that he wanted some sort of accident to befall Lin Ming in jail. Wang Yigao turned his head and saw that Zhao Mingshan was staring at him with an ugly and disgusted expression on his face. Wang Yigao coughed, said with a bit of embarrassment, "Brother Zhao, I will let you investigate the situation. I was just a bit angry and overreacted. This little rat was just too damn arrogant." Lin Ming dusted himself and said to Zhao Mingshan, "It is your responsibility to ensure the public safety of the 7 Profound Martial House entrance exam. Someone had just tried to run me through on this main road with a lance and you did not come. Someone tried to plot my death by getting a bunch of morons to beat me and leave me disabled, and you did not come. And yet when I finally fight back with the lance, you finally come? And you don't even attempt to ask the crowd watching any questions and single-handedly decided that I was the guilty one. Are you playing with me?" Lin Ming spoke, pronouncing each word unhurriedly, and each word was punishing and caused Zhao Mingshan's heart to sink. This kid really had some guts. How could he be so calm in this situation? What was he relying on? Zhao Mingshan looked at Lin Ming and decided that he couldn't drag this matter on any further and began to say angrily, "This is official business. It's not up to the likes of you to comment on the process. Tie him up." When he issued the order, the rope had already wrapped tightly around Lin Ming's neck. Even though Lin Ming was capable, Zhao Mingshan was already at the 4th stage of body transformation, so he did not resist. At this moment a familiar voice cried out from the crowd. "Make way, let me through." Lin Ming looked up and was surprised to see a plump youth twisting and squeezing his way past the mob of people. In his hand was a rattling lunchbox. It was Lin Xiaodong. When Lin Ming had been meditating just a moment ago, Lin Xiaodong had gone to buy breakfast, and had just arrived back to see a commotion. As soon as Lin Xiaodong saw the rope wrapped around Lin Ming's neck, his heart was suddenly inflamed. T. Why the hell did you fuckers tie him up? Zhao Mingshan did not know where this brave fat boy came from, and was preparing to wave the command to throw him away, when in the corner of his eye he saw a light spark of light. As he turned his head he saw that a faint fire had ignited in Lin Ming's hand. Sound transmitting talisman? Zhao Mingshan's eyes widened. The talisman could record voices and transfer them. They were used to communicate. This boy had obviously used it just now without their knowledge and had recorded their conversation and transmitted it. This guy. Zhao Mingshan felt an inexplicable chill in the air as he looked at this youth. Today he had offended him, later he would come looking for revenge. It seemed he really did have to tolerate Wang Yigao's idiotic plans and kill him, otherwise there would be no end to his future troubles. But who has he transmitted the talisman to? Lin Ming had naturally sent the talisman to Mr. Mui. Previously, Mui and Lin Ming had exchanged tips about inscription techniques and had become good friends. Mui had told him that as long as there was the martial quarters, then he could guarantee his absolute safety in Sky Fortune City. As long as there was any trouble, he could just send a talisman to inform him. Although Lin Ming was brave and courageous, he was not a hothead who would let his impulses rashly dictate his actions without paying attention to the possible consequences. Before he had struck Wang Yigao, he already had a plan for this situation. He wasn't going to let a little matter like this be something that could stop him, he would just simply owe Mui a future favor. Although Mui was in the government and serving the court as the crown prince's tutor, he was not a court official. In his heart he was still a man of the world, and those that dwelled in that world valued loyalty and friendship above all else. Mui was not a man who spoke or agreed to anything easily or thoughtlessly. When he had asked to be Lin Ming's friend, he had said so with all the conviction in his heart. Hearing the recording from the sound-transmitting talisman, Mui had a good grasp of the situation that was occurring. He sighed with disgust. He had always been disgusted by the government officials or lesser officers who curried favor with powerful people. Not to mention that Lin Ming was his close friend, behind him was also an unfathomable master. Even if he were not related to this matter, he would still meddle in it. Mui was lax when it came to keeping up with all the bureaucratic nonsense, and didn't know many powerful people who could immediately handle this situation. The only one he could think of to deal with this was his student, the Crown Prince Yang Lin. He sent a sound-transmitting talisman to Yang Lin. Crown Prince Yang Lin had always deeply admired and respected his teacher. If Mui requested a matter of him, he would naturally do everything possible to carry it out. So Yang Lin then sent a personal message to the minister of the police department. The emperor and the crown prince used a unique purple gold sound-transmitting talisman. At this moment, the minister was hugging a concubine and giggling and laughing while enjoying some romantic times with her. As soon as he saw the purple gold flash, he immediately rolled out of his chair. This message was from the crown prince's sound-transmitting talisman. After he learned the reason why the crown prince had sent him a message, the minister felt as if someone had smashed a rock on his head. His legs turned to jelly and he felt suffocated as he said, "Forgive this lowly one for not being strict, my supervision was truly lacking." Each word he said caused his heart to skip a beat. He certainly knew what sort of person Zhao Mingshan was. He was part of the General Wang's palace guard and the youth was a boy of indeterminate background. It was easy to see how Zhao Mingshan would handle this matter, but this boy was unexpectedly a person of the crown prince. "Zhao Mingshan, you are your mom's drop-dead bastard. You actually made your father, suffer such a mess. Like hell. Why did you tie him up?" Lin Xiaodong huffed and puffed. Zhao Mingshan waved his hand and pointed at Lin Xiaodong, obstructing official business and insulting the captain of the police force. "Officers, tie him up for me." Zhao Mingshan sent 2 officers to grab Lin Xiaodong. The officers were mostly at the second stage of body transformation, and they were not some walking potatoes like Wang Yigao. They had solid foundations and combat training. Lin Xiaodong was only at the first stage. But even though he could not resist, he still struggled a bit and screamed like an angry duck, "You dare to touch me. You remember my face. I'll pay this back to you with full interest." "Shut his mouth," Zhao Mingshan said a bit frantically, and a man gagged Lin Xiaodong with a cloth strip between his lips. The result was that the steady stream of curses became an inaudible whining sound. "Let's go." As soon as Zhao Mingshan waved his hand, they trotted down the road with Lin Ming and Lin Xiaodong strapped to the horses' backs. In just a bit of time they were already several miles down the road. Wang Yigao was behind them. He suddenly laughed and said, "Brother Zhao, put them down, let's drag them through." He wanted to drag the 2 men behind the galloping horses. It was interesting, but Zhao Mingshan did not answer. At this moment, there was suddenly a red light in front of him that burst into a mass of light. It was a sound-transmitting talisman. The sound-transmitting talisman directly transmitted the sounds to one's mind, others would not be able to hear it. The flash dissipated. Zhao Mingshan's voice rang with the sound of the minister of the police department roaring at him at maximum volume. "F***CK your mom and listen to me. Release those people. Do you even know who is behind that boy? It is the crown prince. Did you want to fucking revolt against me? You even dare to touch someone that is the crown prince's person. Your fucking mom. Do you even know how to spell the character dead? If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Zhao Mingshan, I swear to you, if anyone comes troubling me, I will kill you myself." Zhao Mingshan was scolded so loudly that he thought his head would explode. His whole body stiffened and his mind blanked. "Crown Prince." Zhao Mingshan suddenly stopped the horses and looked to Lin Ming with his jaw agape. Lin Ming was also looking at him the same calm and indifferent eyes that he'd been all along, like he was some ordinary clown. He remembered the sound-transmitting talisman that Lin Ming had sent out. That was for the crown prince. What sort of existence was the crown prince? He was just a young police captain. He would probably never encounter anything that was related to the crown prince in his life. His heart was shocked with unspeakable words. He finally understood the meaning behind Lin Ming's gaze. "I do say, Brother Zhao, now is a good time. There isn't anyone watching, so in any case, let's drag them along, they shouldn't die." Wang Yigao said with a smile and a heh. "I'll fucking drag your mom." When he heard Wang Yigao speak this nonsense, he had an urge to draw his sword and chop him in half. If it weren't for this idiot, then how could he have fallen into this predicament? "Everyone dismount. Release them." As soon as Zhao Mingshan ordered this, his men were shocked. Wang Yigao was also shocked. Release them. Wang Yigao was not a total fool. He thought to that sound-transmitting talisman. Was it related? However, Zhao Mingshan said nothing else besides the order. Wang Yigao was very unhappy about this turn of events and was preparing to argue, but at that moment, another sound-transmitting talisman also burst into flames in front of him. As soon as he heard the message, Wang Yigao almost dropped to the floor. This was the sound-transmitting talisman that his father personally sent out. It only had a few words: "Return immediately to me." Wang Yigao was able to feel the chill in his father's tone. He had no doubt that when he returned, he would be in for a world of pain. Since one party was the Crown Prince's person and the other party was the son of General Wang, the police department naturally sent out a sound-transmitting talisman to explain the situation to General Wang. General Wang hadn't felt such anger before. The throne was changing, and it was a sensitive time, and this Wang Yigao decided to annoy the Crown Prince. Although he didn't know what connection this boy had to the Crown Prince, even if it was too much, because of a small matter, it was enough for the Crown Prince to decide to select someone else for his position and remove him. He really wanted to kill this good-for-nothing son. Zhao Mingshan saw Wang Yigao freeze with terror at receiving the sound-transmitting talisman. He immediately barked at his men, "Why are you still holding them? Release them now." After being reprimanded, the men began to panic. They went to untie the rope, but Lin Ming sneered, "You want to tie me up, so you tied me up. Now you want to release me? I already told you, once you do, there won't be a good outcome for you." Chapter 32 Oppress with Others' Power. Chapter 32 Oppress with Others' Power. Zhao Mingshan gaped at Lin Ming. He recalled that Lin Ming had once said the words "you want to tie me up, but once you do, there won't be a good outcome for you." Faced with such a superior backing, Zhao Mingshan had no choice but to lower his head and play as a dog for this boy. Even though this was a heavy loss of face for him, it was nothing in comparison to keeping his own little life. Zhao Mingshan immediately changed his countenance. His whole face locked up with a forced smile as he said, "It appears that we accidentally fished out two dragon kings. These two fellow brothers. Today was truly just a silly misunderstanding. I hope you can show some mercy and overlook my transgressions. You people, quickly untie these two fellows." Although he hadn't been untied yet, Lin Xiaodong's gag cloth was taken out, and he was a bit perplexed. But Lin Ming had given him all sorts of surprises these days, so he adapted quickly. Was it that elusive and mysterious master that Lin Ming had spoken of? To Lin Xiaodong, such a powerful and mighty being was only a foreign concept to him. But in any case, with someone like that backing them up, he had no need to fear these idiots. F***ck your whole family, F***ck your mom and your family, you little motherfuckers. Lin Xiaodong let out a string of epithets as the officers struggled to unwind the ropes that bound his large body. They were pushed aside by Lin Xiaodong as he rolled around. "You think that you tie me up and let me go whenever you want?" Lin Xiaodong had originally suffered a loss of face, but now that he had the upper hand, he naturally would return the favor. Zhao Mingshan had nothing he could do but to take the words and suffer silently. He smiled and painstakingly said, "Little brothers, I was blind and foolish. Would you be merciful and overlook these matters today? I would truly be grateful if you somehow allow us to compensate you." Lin Xiaodong crooked his neck. These officers of the police department only had a tiny salary with a bit of gold that they scraped up off the books. Lin Xiaodong did not have a liking for any of this money, so what was the point of offering it to him? At this time, Lin Xiaodong happened to see Wang Yigao off to the side. He was taking advantage of the distraction to make his escape. Lin Xiaodong angrily said, "Stop. Whose mother said to let that kid go? Return here right now." Wang Yigao nearly fell off of his horse as he heard these words. The turn of events and frightened him silly. His father was waiting for him to return home for punishment. This was an absolute nightmare. Now even seeing Lin Ming made his heart shudder with dread. Forget retaliating, if he ever saw Lin Ming again he would make a full effort to scamper away. Not only did Wang Yigao fear Lin Ming, but he also didn't know what kind of backing Lin Ming had. Whatever it was It was greater than anything he could compare with. Losing the only advantage he had, Wang Yigao finally realized he was completely inferior to Lin Ming. What do you want? You want to get away. You think there is anything in this whole world that is that easy? Lin Xiaodong had a sudden inspiration. He turned to several officers. You there, beat this guy up. Wang Yigao trembled as he heard this. Zhao Mingshan grimaced. Now he really didn't know if he could preserve his own head. If they hit Wang Yigao anymore, he really might die. Zhao Mingshan looked to Lin Ming with a pleading look. Lin Ming finally said, consider this finished. There's no point dealing with this kind of person. He looked to Wang Yigao and asked, I ask you, when you came up to stir trouble, I saw that there were also people spying on me from the blue carriage. Was that Zhu Yang? Wang Yigao felt his stomach fall. Did this man have eyes on the back of his head? He had already thoroughly feared Lin Ming, but now that fear was deepening as terror filled his eyes. He still didn't speak, so Lin Ming took a single step towards him, and coldly said, yes, or no. Wang Yigao's heart stopped and he clenched his teeth. He nodded. Today's matter was also thought up by Zhu Yang. Wang Yigao nodded again. Good. You may go. Lin Ming was already thinking that this was the case. Zhu Yang did not want him to enter the seven profound martial house. Wang Yigao was just a pawn that had been used to prevent him from taking part in the entrance exam. Lin Ming did not want to bother with such a small bit player again. The reason was because Wang Yigao's father was the general. Lin Ming also knew discretion, and he had already left behind some hidden true essence in him that would leave him confined to his bed for a period. Zhao Mingshao breathed a sigh of relief as he heard Lin Ming. He hurried forward to personally untie them. Lin Xiaodong flexed his chubby wrists and looked at Zhao Mingshan, who had jumped off a black-maned horse. Lin Xiaodong had a sharp eye for money, and he understood at a glance that this horse was a superior breed. Although they couldn't compare with the snow-white horses of the martial quarters, their value was no less than 500 gold taels. We're fine, you don't need to send us off. Leave behind 2 horses. That black-maned horse is also nice. I'll take it. Zhao Mingshao's mouth twitched as he heard this. This horse was his beloved and treasured beauty. But he clenched his teeth and said, if these fellow brothers like my horse, feel free to ride her. Ha ha. Then don't mind me being impolite. Lin Xiaodong said. He leapt up and his pudgy body seated on the black-maned horse. Heh, let's go. As they left the group, Lin Xiaodong was in an excellent mood. T, that was better than getting money. I've never felt so great in my life. Not only did that idiot Jiao Yiwang earn his lesson, but even the captain gave me his own horse. Haha, this is what they call the great life. Lin Ming smiled and said, we borrowed others' power and influence today, but anyone can rely on connections to do that. If we really want to feel great, then we must get strong ourselves and depend on our own strength to intimidate the world. Then no one would dare to bother us. That feeling would really be great. Intimidate the world. Haha, brother Lin, I don't have such grand dreams as you. I'm fine with relying on others' power and influence. How about this, brother Lin? When one day your name is known across the world, you cover for me. I'll tell them your name, and frighten them off. Okay. Lin Ming laughed out loud. The two were originally only brought 3 or 4 miles down the road. They galloped on their horses and in a short while arrived back at the square. In the square were still a sea of people. It seemed that the strength trial had just begun. Lin Ming had forgotten about the blue carriage until now. He noticed that it was still sitting there. But now Zhu Yang had disembarked from it. He was holding onto a long sword while staring an ice-cold gaze. It seems I gave you less credit than was due. You are quite talented. In a moment, Zhu Yang had transmitted his voice to Lin Ming. They were 200 meters away, but it was as if Zhu Yang was speaking right beside him. This was a message sent with true essence. It required an extremely high degree of control of true essence to achieve. Zhu Yang must have reached the peak of the 3rd stage in the last 6 months. Don't think that just because you reached the 2nd stage of body transformation that you are anything special. Beating up some useless potatoes that are on the same level as you is no accomplishment at all. You said that one day you would surpass me? Good. I will wait for you. I will let you know the true difference between you and you will learn that you are not destined to be an elite of this world. An elite of this world? Lin Ming looked at Xu Yang and smiled. Certainly not of this world. Chapter 33 Strength Trial. Chapter 33 Strength Trial. The 7 Profound Martial House had a total of 20 stone pillars for the strength trial. After the exam begins, the candidates would divide into 20 teams as to reduce the congestion in the square. The 20 stone pillars were set up in front of the doors of separate entrances to the 7 Profound Martial House. At the top of each stone pillar was a shining light which was the mark of every candidate's destiny. Whether they would pass this gate or whether they would be tossed aside would all be decided by this one number. A roughly 30 or 40-year-old woman stepped in front of the crowd and stood on a platform that had been set up. Hello everyone. I am one of the supervisors for the strength trial. I would like to announce that the 7 Profound Martial Houses examination has altogether 3 parts. For those who manage to qualify through the end, they will be given an official assessment based upon their age, talent, and result. The top 10 will obtain an award, and the number 1 will be rewarded with a Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill. A Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill. The entire crowd gasped in surprise. Even the juniors of the aristocratic families were flabbergasted. Those among them with lower strength were filled with regret. Their faces revealed sorry and depressed expressions as they were destined to never achieve first place. Those that were stronger straightened their backs. Their eyes shone with hope and they twitched around as if they were itching for a fight. They had assumed that this Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill was prepared especially for them. Lin Ming had read through a medicinal manual before and had a rough sense understanding regarding the properties of the Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill. This pill was about the size of a grape and was created by mixing a Crimson Gold Dragon's marrow with several species of rare and precious herbs. It would then be boiled and distilled into a pill that would be able to improve the physique, enhance cultivation, and even help break through bottlenecks. The Crimson Gold Dragon was not a real dragon, it was a descendant that only shared some blood. Nevertheless, creatures that were related to dragons were not weak. Even Hutian experts would not be a match. Sky Fortune Kingdom did not have many Hutian experts to begin with, and they also didn't have anyone that was capable of refining such a precious pill. Therefore Sky Fortune Kingdom was unable to produce the Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill. Without a doubt this medicine originated from the 7 Profound Valleys. Every year the 7 Profound Valleys would screen talents, and medicines were provided from the main school to attract talented youths to participate. Perhaps to the 7 Profound Valleys, the Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill was not particularly precious, but to those of Sky Fortune Kingdom, it was absolutely a valuable treasure that could not be purchased by money. Even a large aristocratic family would be terribly jealous of anyone who possessed such a treasure. The beautiful supervisor did not seem excited or unhappy as she continued. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th placed will receive a Golden Snake Scarlet Pill, and 5th to 10th will receive 10 Soul Gathering Pellet. The Golden Snake Scarlet Pill was refined from the gallbladder of a 100-year-old golden scarlet snake. This kind of gallbladder was named because of its gold-red appearance. It was inferior to the Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill, but it was also a rare and precious medicine which most people would never see. But the 4th through 10th place only received 10 soul-gathering pellets which were much less rare. Each pellet had a value of 200 gold taels, and 10 of them would be equal to 2,000 gold taels. But the 2 medicines given to those that ranked higher were at least 10,000 gold taels. In fact, even if one could pay several times over, they would still not be able to buy one. The rich rewards made the talented candidates incomparably excited. They were impatient to go on stage and show off their skills. Looking at this eager crowd was a group of young men and women wearing silk clothing. They laughed contemptuously. In the group was a handsome youth wearing a jade belt and smiling. The youth's entourage smiled and flattered him. These people really overreach. This Crimson Gold Dragon Marrow Pill is already in young master's pocket. Winning is already a foregone conclusion. Do they also think to try and compete? Truly they do not know their place. The youth faintly smiled and waved his folding fan. He didn't respond. He was a talent of the Yulu City's Wang family. He had a 4th grade talent, early 3rd stage of body transformation cultivation, and had once taken the number 1 spot in Yulu City's elite competition. Yulu City was a big city, thus this number 1 spot held some weight. On the platform the woman continued, "We will now begin the first round of the entrance exam. Please participate in the exam with your full strength. The light beam on the stone column will signal the strength of your attack. An inch represents 100 jins of strength. As long as you pass 1000 jins, then you will pass this round. Each candidate will have 3 attempts. So long as you qualify once, then you will pass. Everyone, we will now have a demonstration. Lin Sen, step forwards." As the beautiful lady finished speaking, a man walked up on stage. He was tall and gaunt, almost appearing emaciated, with a pale, cold face and harsh eyes. He wore a black suit and on his back was a 3-foot-long knife. Even though it was broad daylight, when he stepped on stage, the temperature of the crowd plummeted several degrees. "Is that Ling Sen? Someone from the heavenly abode of the 7 profound martial house?" This Ling Sen was obviously famous, but Lin Ming did not know of him. He turned and asked Lin Xiaodong, "Who is this Ling Sen?" Lin Xiaodong might not be diligent when it came to practicing his martial arts, but he was extremely gossipy and curious about all matters, thus he knew about matters such as these. He said, "Ling Sen is one of the senior apprentices of the heavenly abode, which is the fiercest department in the 7 profound martial house. He is 20 years old and is a 4th grade talent. His cultivation is at the peak of the 4th stage, and he just entered the heavenly abode last year. On his own initiative he requested to be sent to the war front for 1 year, where he slaughtered countless people. Right now his combat ability is difficult to estimate, but people say that he will soon enter the 5th stage of body transformation." 20 years old and 5th stage of body transformation? Lin Ming was slightly startled. Generally, martial artists were considered extraordinary if they reached the 5th stage, the bone forging stage, by the time they were 30. This Ling Sen was also overflowing with killing intent. It seemed he had killed many people in the battlefield. Compared to those with the same level of cultivation, this man was truly a master. Ling Sen loathed demonstrations like this. However, it was a tradition that the apprentices of the heavenly abode would show off for the candidates. This was for the sake of letting them know that there was always someone out there who was better, and they should never stop striving to reach the top. Lin Sen casually stood before the pillar and without even preparing, he casually waved his right hand. A boom sound was heard, and the stone pillar fiercely shook. The light beam jumped high, stabilized, and finally stabilized at 4 feet and 9 inches. 4,900 jins. In the field everyone was full of praise and astonishment. If Ling Sen had used his full strength, he might even surpass 5,000 jins. Seeing this result, Lin Ming's eyes widened. This Ling Sen's strength was almost double his own. Lin Xiaodong said, "It's not anything surprising. He is one of the top talents in Sky Fortune City's younger generation. It would only be weird if he didn't have a result like this." Lin Ming said, "One of the younger generation? Could Qin Xingxuan defeat him?" Lin Xiaodong shrugged. "I don't know Qin Xingxuan's strength, but Qin Xingxuan is well-rounded and studies all subjects. Ling Sen only focuses his training on fighting and killing. Really, he is a man who specializes in life or death battles. I don't think Qin Xingxuan could possibly win if their lives were on the line, but don't forget that Qin Xingxuan is only 15 years old while Ling Sen is 20. Hearing this, Lin Ming nodded slightly. Body transformation had a total of 6 stages. The further you were, the more the gap between the stages increased. The strength of one in the pulse condensation stage could reach 8,000 jins. Lin Ming was very far away from this state. Exam. Begin. At this moment on stage, the beautiful middle-aged lady sent out the order to start the strength trial. The young candidates were all very eager, each was itching to get up and test their strength. However, when they actually tested their strength on the stone pillar, there were many who failed. 900 jins, 850 jins, 850 jins, 3 times failed. Next. 950 jinns, 900 jinns, 900 jinns, 3 times failed. Next. Many of the candidates had barely reached the second stage of body transformation. If they were in peak condition, then they might be able to hit 1000 jinns. However, they could not be at peak condition for every attempt. In addition, they also suffered from nerves and were unable to show their highest level of strength. These people were naturally eliminated. 1000 jinns, qualified. Someone in Lin Ming's line passed, and that man shouted happily as he danced around in excitement. The truth was that this man also understood, although he passed and barely qualified, he would most likely be eliminated during the second round. Even so, it was an honor for him to have passed the first round of the 7 Profound Martial Houses entrance exam at 16 years of age. 1300 jinns, qualified. 950 jinns, failed. When a result came out, those that failed would dejectedly leave in low spirits. The ones who succeeded were giddy, and among them were those that showed indifference. To these talents, passing this trial was a given. At this moment, there was a commotion in front. Lin Ming looked ahead and saw that a youth wearing blue linen clothes was standing in front of the stone pillar, and was gathering his strength. Lin Ming was curious about who this man was. He heard some people discussing, that is Sun Ping from Eastwater City. He is at the 3rd stage of body transformation. His strength is fierce. As the discussion was occurring, Sun Ping shot forwards. He hit the stone column with a peng, and the light beam began to tremble as it shot upwards. It stopped at 2 feet and 3 inches. 2,300 jinns. This was the first person who had passed 2,000 jinns. The crowd burst into exclamation. Chapter 34 Dream Trial. Chapter 34 Dream Trial. This Sun Ping has already been at the 3rd stage of body transformation for a period of time, but still only managed to strike out with 2,300 jinns. He's also only 17 years old. He isn't a threat to me, Wang Yangfeng said as he waved his fan. He narrowed his eyes as he gauged Sun Ping. The final evaluation of the entrance exam would be dependent on not only the results of the trial, but of the age and talent grade of those who passed. The younger they were and the higher the talent grade, the higher the evaluation would be. In the many young martial artists and talents that participated in the exam, 17 years of age was considered a bit old. Young master, it's your turn. Millimeter. Wang Yangfeng folded his fan and handed it to his attendant. As Wang Yangfeng stepped in front of the stone column, many people begin to recognize him. It's Wang Yangfeng of Yuelu City. As the crowd began to spread the news, the nearby candidates turned their gaze over to him. In this group of candidates, Wang Yangfeng had the greatest chance of competing for first place. Not only was his strength formidable, but he was a youth of 15 years of age. And most importantly, Wang Yanfeng's talent was high. Wang Yangfeng was a grade 4 talent, but the truth was that the grade 4 talents and above was also divided into low, medium, and high quality. Wang Yangfeng was of the rare high grade 4 talents. Wang Yangfeng stood before the stone column and let out a single breath. The breath curled into the air like twin snakes. This was a sign of the 3rd stage of body transformation, viscera training. The surrounding crowd gasped in awe. Seriously, he has just entered the 3rd stage of body transformation and yet he can already breathe out the twin snakes, and he is only 15 years old. This is truly talent that defies the will of heaven. Millimeter. Martial artists at viscera training have true essence protecting their heart and lungs and other 5 major internal organs. They can protect their frail internal organs from attacks, and moreover, their heart and lungs are strong. They have abnormal vitality and could prolong their breathing. Their muscles would naturally strengthen under these conditions and rise. This Wang Yangfeng already breathes snakes but has just entered the 3rd stage. It truly makes one jealous. As this discussion continued, Wang Yangfeng had already struck out at the stone column. A bang rang through the air and the stone column shook. The beam of light jumped up and finally settled at 2 feet 4 inches. 2,400 jinns. Generally speaking, the average martial artist who had entered the 3rd stage of body transformation would reach about 2,000 jinns. But Wang Yangfeng, he had just entered the third stage, was only 15 years old, and yet managed to show a strength of 2,400 jins. It really was shocking to all onlookers. However, before the crowd had recovered their composure, there were cries of alarm and surprise coming from another side. A tall and burly youth had walked in front of a stone column and punched his fist. The light beam rose and fell 2 feet and 4 inches. 2,400 jins. Wang Yanfeng's record had just been born but was already rendered average by another youth. Lin Ming looked at that tall and burly youth and was startled to see that he was someone who was also at the second stage of cultivation. It wasn't out of sorts to see someone at the third stage of body transformation reach 2,000 jins, but 2,000 jins at only the second stage? That was just too excessive. By now Lin Ming had noticed that although the youth appeared to have a naive and innocent appearance, his height was higher than those of his peers around him, and his muscled body seemed to be thicker and denser than an adult's. Was this what they called inborn divine strength? Those with inborn divine strong were several times stronger than those of their age. Although they were very rare, it appeared that this tall and burly youth was one such type. Wang Yangfeng also saw that impressive youth and let out a light humph. He didn't give it too much thought. Inborn divine strength. Martial artists fought with not just their strength, but also with their martial arts and skills. Not only that, but the higher one's cultivation, the more important true essence becomes. Those who were born with this divine strength did not necessarily become some fierce martial arts figure. The trial continued, and several youths passed with a strength of 1,000 jins that were at the peak the second stage. The 7 Profound Martial House stipulated that the candidate's age must be between 15 to 18 years of age. It was easy for those of this age bracket to have had achieved the peak of the second stage of body transformation. Occasionally there would also be those youths that had reached the third stage of body transformation. These youths had managed 2,000 jins, and some even reached 2,500 jins. Now, it was finally Lin Ming's turn. Before Lin Ming arrived at the stone column, he had already realized that this was a more serious situation than he thought. Although he was confident that he wouldn't lose to Wang Yangfeng, his natural talent was also far from his. It was third grade compared to a high fourth grade. In the final evaluation, Lin Ming would suffer a great penalty. In every round of this exam, Lin Ming had to put forth his whole heart and soul. Lin Ming breathed lightly and let his entire body relax. He eliminated all distracting thoughts and sounds. The true primal chaos formula revolved silently in his body. Compared to a martial art at the same cultivation, his true essence was several times thicker in his muscles. Strength trainings flow like silk, the principles of hardness and softness. Lin Ming engraved these thoughts onto his mind as he meditated with the chaotic virtues combat meridians. His vision condensed and his relaxed body suddenly went taut like a longbow. His waist lowered and he thrust forwards with the strength of his thighs like a sleek and mighty leopard. Bang! The strike hit the center of the stone column. The light beam rose dramatically and crazily bounced up until it settled at 2,700 jins. Lin Ming's strength was 2,600 jins, but if he put forth his full effort, 2,700 jins was also possible. My God, 2,700 jins. This boy is simply a vicious beast in human form. A few hundred more jins and he would have caught up to someone at the fourth stage of body transformation. No, this isn't right, it's just not right. The young fellow is only at the second stage of body transformation. Is he also someone with inborn divine strength? The crowd wildly discussed this, and some people had quickly recognized Lin Ming. I know that person. Just half an hour ago on the main road he had used his strength of arm to throw off someone on a horse like a windmill. He threw off someone that was also at the second stage of body transformation and was holding a lance on a horse. The man was thrown but the boy hadn't been moved at all. I thought he was some demon child but it turns out he was also someone with inborn divine strength. No wonder he was capable of that. Wasn't he arrested by the authorities? How did he get back? As people buzzed, the tall and burly youth who had beaten Wang Yangfeng and reached 2,400 jins also looked at Lin Ming. The youth revealed a friendly expression as he happily smiled at Lin Ming. He had not thought that he would also meet someone with inborn divine strength at this examination, so he was quite sympathetic towards Lin Ming. Wang Yangfeng looked at Lin Ming and frowned. This boy also had inborn divine strength. It truly was annoying. It was like these rare youths were crawling out of the woodwork like C**croaches. Brother Feng, this kid came out of nowhere and dared to steal Broth Feng's limelight. Brother Feng truly was robbed. A man at Wang Yanfeng's side said. Wn Yangfeng said, it's not anything special. Having this result at the second stage of body transformation is decent. Battle prowess doesn't depend on just strength. Although those with inborn divine strength are rare, not many of them have great achievements in the future. Wang Yangfeng said this with a tone of exasperation. Although he had already determined that he would take first during this entrance exam, he was repeatedly overshadowed again and again by these fellow youths, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. What Brother Feng said is absolutely right. In the future, what one will need to focus on is the true essence. The superiority of strength is only useful at the start. This kid will only be happy for a few years. Wang Yanfeng's entourage echoed. After Lin Ming, it was Lin Xiaodong's turn. As he approached the stone column, he began to turn his neck back and forth and wiggle his waist. He continued this for a few minutes until the examination officials appeared to be increasingly annoyed and impatient. Then Lin Xiaodong finally cried out and punched the stone column. Thud. There was a dull thumping sound as the stone column's light beam shook for a bit and then settled. The examination supervisor frowned as he looked at Lin Xiaodong. 750 jins, but you also have 2 more opportunities. The result was really bad considering that anyone less than 900 jins would not dare to register. No one wanted to idle in this huge crowd only to end up embarrassing themselves. But in Lin Xiaodong's point of view, this result was very good, and he had this natural shameless capability of ignoring the thoughts of others. He wiggled his waist and stretched his neck again, and then punched out again. Peng. 700 jins. Another punch. 750 jins. Without a shadow of a doubt, Lin Xiaodong had suffered a miserable defeat. To Lin Xiaodong, this was a decent result. He was only 15 years old and his father had decided that only when he was 18 would he have any possibility of entering the 7 profound martial house. Lin Xiaodong had not planned on breaking through the pulse condensation period from the start, and his only ideal and wish was to preserve his position within the family. I gave you the golden deer pills, did you not take any? Lin Ming asked as Lin Xiaodong walked back. I ate them all, otherwise there was no way I would get past 600 jins. Lin Xiaodong innocently shrugged. He left Lin Ming at a loss for words. However, Lin Ming also thought this was normal. After all, before he practiced the chaotic virtues combat meridians, his best result was 850 jins. His diligent and tireless training was far above Lin Xiaodong, who had only managed 600 jins at the time. It was difficult for someone with only a grade 3 talent and no formidable aristocratic background to enter the 7 profound martial house at 15 years of age. Even the first round of the entrance exam was prohibitively difficult to pass. The strength trial finally finished around noon, and the candidates were allowed a short rest before the entrance exam continued. Because the rest time was too short, Lin Ming simply ate a small meal before sitting back in meditation and then hurrying back to the square. The second inspection was the dream trial. It was a test of a martial artist's heart. For a martial artist, they needed not only talent and support of their background, but moreover, they had to be someone with an earnest and indefatigable martial heart. Chapter 35 The Lake's Jade Platform. Chapter 35 The Lake's Jade Platform. The heart of martial arts was by no means anything that was greatly loyal or virtuous, or even good. Whether it be living Buddhas that brimmed with righteousness or demon sect leaders with dark intentions, the truth was that the heart of martial arts judged neither good nor evil. It only resolved to ask whether one had the determination to tread the rocky path. Practicing martial arts was a daily struggle. One's life would be filled with misery, danger, enticements. If one's mentality was not firm, then it was easy to fall from the path of a martial artist and give up, thus wasting all previous efforts. Some people only practiced martial arts for wealth and sensual pleasures. In the heart of these people, they practiced martial arts without truly understanding what it meant. This would not affect them during an early period of cultivation, but as would be an insurmountable roadblock later. The pulse condensation period was enough for one to have a sumptuous and luxurious lifestyle where one could drown in money and beautiful women. Sky Fortune Kingdom had many such warriors. Because Sky Fortune Kingdom would handsomely reward those who reached the pulse condensation period, there were those who would suffer untold hardships to attain this goal, only to halt their path of martial arts because they could not resist the temptation of extravagance. The dream trial did not examine one's cultivation, it perceived one's determination and heart of martial arts. Lin Ming had complete confidence regarding this. Even if he had not obtained the mysterious magic cube, he believed he still had a 120% chance to pass. At this time, more than half of the candidates had failed the first trial, so after they had left the field, the square was much more spacious. Pitiful and sad Lin Xiaodong had already lost the qualifications to enter, so he could only stay on the main road beyond the square. Lin Ming turned around to look at Lin Xiaodong. Although there were many people in the crowd, he still saw him. Lin Xiaodong also saw Lin Ming and he gave him a thumbs up. Lin Ming smiled. When he turned his head, he saw a figure in the crowd that caught his eye. The girl wore a form-fitting daffodil yellow dress. She looked to be an aristocratic junior with a top hat made of swan feathers. She stood in an obscure corner and observed everything. Lin Ming recognized this girl. She was Lan Yunyu. Lin Ming quickly turned his eyes from her. He knew that if they saw each other it would only increase Lan Yunyu's embarrassment. It was better to have not seen at all. In his heart Lin Ming had not blamed Lan Yunyu for anything. After all, there had only been a silent agreement between them, and they had not discussed marriage or anything like that to an extensive degree. Lan Yunyu had made the only choice that an ordinary girl could possibly make in her circumstances. Lan Yunyu did not know that Lin Ming had already discovered her. Lan Yunyu had struggled in her heart for a long time as to whether to come here today or not. She did not want to see Lin Ming, but in her heart was a faint bit of worry, and she wanted to know whether or not he was well. She could only remember back to 2 months ago when Lin Ming had been trying to sell several inferior and poor symbol papers. The scene in front of the shop had made her feel several points of pity. Supporting one's own martial arts without depending on a wealthy family background, he didn't even have a particularly fearsome talent. He only had meager savings that he could use to rent a room, to buy a meal and some medicines. In these sad circumstances he could probably only afford iron thread grass, and perhaps even not that. And if so, then in his body he would have accumulated several internal injuries. These thoughts caused Lan Yunyu distress. She liked his strength and his persistence. She remembered when she was a child, he had protected her from a large group of bullies. He had stood in front of her like a brave knight, arms spread wide, and taken the beatings. He had made her feel protected and safe. But alas, such feelings were in the end unable to replace certain things. She was an attractive girl and had the makings of an outstanding woman. Her natural talent was good, and although she was not from an aristocratic family, her family was well off. Such a girl would inevitably have feelings of superiority, like a noble peacock confined to a playpen with chickens. She was unable to convince herself to settle in her ordinary life. A life where she would eventually marry Lin Ming and become the mistress of a family restaurant, a life where they would love each other and have little kids at 20, and then he would gradually age and die, and she would be there by herself with even her looks having gone. She did not want to have such a life. She did not. Therefore she chose Zhu Yang. Not only because of the relations between the Zhu family and the imperial family, but he could also help her enter the 7 profound martial house. He would give rare and precious medicines to Lan Yunyu and help her enter the pulse condensation period. Under the enticement of the pulse condensation period, Lan Yunyu was unable to withstand her desires. This morning, Lan Yunyu was restless. She did not want to come, but ultimately failed to convince herself. So she had arrived this afternoon. She came thinking that Lin Ming would fail the strength trial. As long as Lin Ming failed, he would be able to give up his dreams and go home to a safe life. With this she would be able to relax and lay down all her worries. She did not actually think she would see Lin Ming in the qualifying team. This made her simultaneously surprised and worried. Surprised because Lin Ming had unexpectedly managed to break through to the second stage of body transformation at only 15 years of age and having no family background. Worried because she could not conceive that Lin Ming could reach this stage safely. She only imagined that on his body were several internal injuries, and that he would be nothing more than a cripple by the time he was 30. In the morning, the beautiful lady supervisor of the strength trial appeared once again. She stared down at that crowd and saw that there were still many people remaining and thought this result wasn't too shabby. Everyone follow me. We are now headed to the Sea Jade platform. The crowd of about 100 boys and girls followed the beautiful woman supervisor as she passed through the mighty and intimidating gates of the Seven Profound Martial House. The Seven Profound Martial House was nestled into the hillsides. There were no tall buildings or massive constructions inside, but endless stretches of land and streams dotted with gorgeously designed pavilions. These pavilions were carefully crafted, with smooth, fine lines and surrounded by a perfect blend of scenery. It really made one exclaim in amazement at the seamless craftsmanship and sense of natural aesthetic that went into its design. The crowd people walked for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, until they approached a deep green lake. It had a vibrant color like living jade. The surface had no trace of waves and was peacefully quiet. The lake was hedged by weeping willow trees, and even though it was autumn when the leaves of trees would fall, it amazed everyone that not even a single leaf was floating on the calm lake surface. In the center of the emerald lake, a jade platform had been carved out of pale white jade. The jade platform was joined to the shore by 9 stone bridges. It was like a mystical fairy world come to life. Lin Ming found that a few dozen meters from the jade platform was a pavilion that was floating in water. In the pavilion was placed a stone table that was covered with tea and dried fruits. Around the table were sitting several old men and a single girl who were looking towards them with great interest. It was unexpectedly Qin Xingxuan and Mr. Mui. Lin Ming slightly hesitated. Why would they appear here? Mui had also discovered Lin Ming looking towards him, and faintly smiled back. Qin Xingxuan also had a friendly smiling face. Lin Ming returned a smile out of courtesy. He had a faint suspicion that the other people accompanying Mui were not simple. Among them were several, who it seemed from their breathing and appearance, were not any less strong than Mui. These people were masters. Lin Ming wasn't mistaken. These people were several of Mui's friends and several officials of the Sky Fortune Kingdom's government. There were also elders from the Seven Profound Martial House. Exams were twice a year, and they would come to observe to see if there were any good seedlings among the candidates. They were mostly looking for those with sufficient talent and who also had the pure heart of a martial artist. Every year, the candidates had to register their talent and other information in order to enter the entrance exam. Thus the elders did not need to measure as they had already looked through the files. The candidates this time around were barely satisfactory. The strongest was a high 4th grade talent. Having a 5th grade talent was a once-in-a-decade event and wasn't a usual occurrence. The high 4th grade talents were also good and the low 4th grade talents could make do. The 3rd grade talents were somewhat inferior. The first round of the exam was not anything important, therefore the Martial House's elders had not made an appearance. They have seen the talent already and this time they came to observe which one of these candidates had an especially strong heart of a martial artist. Come up. Defend your mind, sit in meditation, and once you cross the 5 trials then you will have passed. The beautiful lady supervisor said. The candidates stepped onto the 9 stone bridges one at a time. Their hearts began to drum wildly in their chest. During the first round their hearts had been filled with confidence. They knew the limits of their own strength. Only some of them had thought that they might be nervous and not able to display their full potential, but they knew in their hearts that they did not need to be too anxious about passing. But this time was the dream trial, and they were nervous. Many of the candidates had never attempted the dream trial before, so they did not have an idea what sort of scene they would encounter at the end. But they had heard that this was the trial with the highest rate of elimination. It would reach as high as 90%. In a group of 10, only one would pass. One had to know that these were the most outstanding talents among those of their age. In a small town or small family or even in an entire city, they were the most splendid and majestic of their generation. They had constantly been revered and labeled geniuses since childhood, but even in such a group of people, most would be eliminated within the dream trial. This trial was truly terrifying. Sit upon the jade platform. After 10 breaths the trial shall begin, the beautiful lady supervisor said. Even though she was separated by a far distance, her voice was clearly heard within every candidate's ears. This method of passing messages via true essence was even more profound and powerful than Zhu Yang. Lin Minute suspected that this beautiful lady supervisor was a martial artist at the pulse condensation period. As Ling Ming stepped onto the jade platform, he scanned the distant crowd and discovered that among them was Lan Yunyu. She was leaning against a willow tree and was still gazing at Lin Ming, not thinking that she had been sighted by him. Lin Ming gave a single sigh and no longer looked. He sat cross-legged on the jade platform. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.